My goodness, I almost messed that up entirely. It literally said, "Oh, you have no more space. This isn't going to record." And I was like, "Dang it! Okay, I have to free up things." And I realized I still had another tab open up. But how's it going, guys? It is almost the end of 2025. Or, geez, I'm already in the future. Almost the end of 2024. And I thank you guys for joining me on this wonderful, crazy journey. How's it going, Alice? Good to see you and your cat. Heyo to Minecraft World. And we actually got someone in the back joining us. You know him. You love him. It's the Rooney of Blacks. Shalom, good sir.
It's arguable whether people love me, but we'll roll with it.
Or they just love to hate you. Either way.
I'm okay with that.
There you go.
Hey, you'll never find a bigger hater of Blackaroony than myself, so don't even bother.
Many have tried to dethrone you from the biggest Blackaroony hater, but nothing can beat self-hate.
Exactly.
There you go. There you go. But how are you doing today, good sir?
Tired with a migraine. But other than that, I am existing despite my enemies.
There you go. You exist purely to spite your enemies.
Exactly.
There we go. There we go. And also in the back is the Minecraft world, or the world of Minecraft, or the better deserved Tiamat world Minecraft.
Tiamat world sounds hard, not gonna lie.
Tiamat world. Yeah, I vibe with that.
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
How are you doing today, good sir?
Year. Oh boy.
Wait, is it really?
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't notice.
No, literally, time does fly.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I completely remember that that New Year's was coming up was because I asked for the days off. So I was like, okay, cool.
Feels like earlier this week we were debating King of the Monsters.
It was. I was actually rewatching that stream earlier.
Everyone's
today.
freshing up on their debate tactics.
Yeah.
Because for people who don't know, there's another one coming up. Round 2 will be in effect soon enough.
Don't spoil it.
We are
couldn't have waited until the end, dude.
Yeah, man.
Tis me spoilers.
Yeah. I was also rewatching King of the Monsters yesterday, because I was doing research for my GBK video, and I found out some interesting information. So, first off, there's this one really funny scene that I didn't notice until now. I think Minecraft World and Zim know about it because I mentioned it in Zim server. So y'all know the scene where Mothra awakens and Madison is going after Emma. So it is assumed that there is like radiation in that area, right? And we all know that whenever you exit a place where it's contaminated with radiation, you're supposed to decontaminate, right? But Madison enters the decontamination chamber and then enters the contaminated area, and I thought that was hilarious. And I actually talked to about it. I talked about it to a friend of, well, not a friend. Well, I barely know him, but he is autistic for radiation, and I posited a hypothetical scenario, and he just went overboard with the radiation thing. But yeah, the Tasman Sea. Did you know that the Tasman Sea is in Australia, nearby Australia? Did y'all know that?
Yeah.
Okay. And did y'all know that that was Godzilla's territorial route as established by King of the Monsters?
Yes.
I do not remember because I haven't watched the movie. I haven't watched the movie in a little bit, so I actually can't say with any confidence.
I can.
Well, yeah, no, I'm going to let y'all piece the puzzle pieces together on your own to see what's wrong with that one scene in GVK.
Oh, the fact that they said we weren't near any of his territorial waters.
Right there. Emma, what's her name? Eileen Andrews is a liar. Either that or she's incredibly stupid.
And we bring in the Monster of Sea, or the Fry of Dawn, the Monster Sea.
One of the seamen of the seamen's.
So wait, Black, does this technically mean that like your Cotton debates are technically an Army versus Navy scenario?
That's actually a really good question, because I rewatched 2014 last week, exclusively to try and figure out like any patterns that I noticed, like with the military. It's what happened in 2014 was like not a coalition, like a collaboration between the army and the navy because they recognized the uniforms.
Yeah.
And also, Admiral Stenz committed a crime.
Ooh,
He
do
was
tell.
supposed, yeah. So y'all remember that "Let Them Fight" scene?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the most iconic scene in the entire movie, I know. So it is military, code of not ethics, but it's within the military code to always take off your hat whenever you're entering a building and always put it back on. Your patrol cap, you're supposed to take it off when you're inside a building and put it back on when you're outside. He did not put it on when he was outside talking to Zarazawa. So that's a UCMJ.
If I may ask, why? Why is that?
Because the armies, because the military said so. I don't
literally. There's so many tiny things that the military can peg you for, quite literally in some cases. So it's cases like that where if you watch a movie and a service member can point out all the small details, it kind of tells whether they really were paying attention to military culture versus they weren't.
I mean, some people don't care. Sometimes because they always have this little rule, like if you're within 15 feet away from a building, then you have to either take off your PC cap or, well, I don't know why they call it a PC cap. The C stands for cap. You either take it off within 15 feet or put it back on, depending on whether you're exiting or entering. It's just the dress code, I suppose. If you're in civilian clothes, then sure, you can. You don't have to do that, but yeah. And none of the service members that are inferior to Admiral Stenz do any sort of salute or recognition. So yeah,
I think they only do it in one scene, if I recall correctly. But then I think that was in 2014, not Cottom.
Yeah, and Ford does it too. So yeah.
Honest to God, yeah, it's an inaccuracy, but honest to God, it doesn't ruin the movie whatsoever. It's just a nit. At that point, it's basically a nitpick.
Oh no, I'm nitpicking. I'm not saying that makes the movie any better or worse. I'm just pointing that out because you know how you're autistic for some things, and then you see that thing in the movie, and then you're like, wait, that's not how it's done. Wait, that's not how it's done. Like this.
That's scale. I torture the Titanic Creations Discord by basically pointing out that their figures are not to scale.
Oh yeah. Well, what's it called?
They're not to scale.
I'll say this. I love my younger came in Monday, so I'm happy with it.
I'm still waiting for mine.
Aren't you down in are you on the East Coast?
West Coast.
West Coast. Really?
Ooh.
You're on the West Coast and it took you longer to get yours?
Yeah, I don't know where mine is. I ordered it back in June, July. I think
mine was I think what's it called? Mine was in April, right when they started taking donations. But I got mine a little later than a few other people, but I assumed that was just because I was on the East Coast and I was kind of further up north to begin with anyway. So as a result, I was expecting mine to come in later because almost everyone who was closer to, I think they shipped out of Colorado. So everything was coming out of Colorado. I know one of my friends in Arizona, they got theirs right away, and a few other people in that area near Colorado were right away.
Yeah, I'm in Utah at the moment, and it hasn't come yet. I'm probably gonna DM. I'm probably gonna DM Mac just to make sure what's going on.
Did you what's it called? Did you check Did you check your shipping order?
I didn't.
Check your shipping order, because if you check the shipping order, it'll let you know.
Tracking information.
Oh, really? It hasn't been processed at all.
It hasn't?
Unless if you should have gotten.
It was processed. It processed back.
If it was processed in that same email, it should have given you the tracking number too, because that's what happened for mine.
Huh. I probably deleted it.
Oh, then well, check it, because if it's not deleted, if you deleted it, it should still be in your trash box, unless you cleared out your trash box.
I think I cleared my trash box a while ago. I'll talk to him after the stream.
Yeah.
Or while we're streaming. One sec.
Minecraft World, it just reminded me, when you said the the package hasn't come yet. When you said that, it reminded me. I just flashed back to when one of the trainees was being called by a drill sergeant, and the trainee said "coming," and then the drill sergeant said, "Trainee, never say that to another man ever. Say moving."
Yeah.
That was funny.
Oh, so what's it called? Speaking of odd things that you see in films that's at least related to Godzilla is the case of some of the weapons in Godzilla 98 having some of like the weirdest choices for certain characters to have, because for some reason one of the soldiers at the scene where they do the first fish lure has a Franchi Spaz 15 for some reason, and he's like the only squad member to have one, which is like really odd because I don't recall the US Army ever having that as like a shotgun issued to the Army at all.
Right.
Well, the fact that I remember one person literally tried to tell me that the machine guns that were on some of the vehicles couldn't be handheld by people, which was even funnier because I'm like, dude, you literally see one person in this shot holding this weapon here. There's no way that you're telling me that no one could hold one of these. It literally is possible. You see it on screen.
I didn't notice.
Yeah. What's it called? It's an M60. You see one mounted on a Humvee, and then you see a soldier right beside O'Neill holding up a M60. But what's it called? The flash hider is filled in, so you can tell it's like a replica versus like one that kind of has like actual pieces on it.
It would be nice to see a Godzilla movie being made by like a service member.
Yeah, like the closest, real quick before I want to say this to him before I lose my train of thought, but what do you think of the new profile picture? It looks good, man. I like it.
Nice.
But I'd say the Godzilla film that I'd say the closest it gets to like feeling like it was made by a service member is the second Kiryu film, Tokyo SOS, because the main character is kind of more of a boots on the ground grunt type person, being a engineer and stuff, as well as it feels more in line with a story that would be told by a service member. But I think that like a lot of people probably assume that you couldn't do a Godzilla movie by a service member because everyone would think that whoever is making it that's in the service would try to have Godzilla die in the film due to like the achievements of the Army, when that's like never the point. You can still have a good story regardless of whether or not the Army actually kills Godzilla. Because I think that like if
That's
anything, like Godzilla being able to beat the Army is an inevitability, but seeing what's done on screen is what's important. And I think if like you have to have a service member be in charge of a film like that, have them actually like put up a like well done tactics, but like a righteous kind of last stand, as it were, when facing Godzilla. That
I would love to see that, actually, now that you mention it. You know, the whole, men love to want to die in battle, and then you hear like the choir version of like a prayer playing in the background. I want to see that, but with a Godzilla movie, someone trying to fight Godzilla, and it's like a last stand mode. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, like I could totally see like seeing Godzilla like just blast through like a line of tanks, but seeing other tanks maneuvering around buildings to get pot shots at him and like trying to move back in position, and literally the Army doing everything it can from a conventional standpoint to try to slow him down or beat him, and like have that be a really big part of the film. Yeah. And I think that like that would also make the destruction seem more personal, similar to what they do in -1. And they do that. And essentially that's like -1's also another film that's like close to what you'd expect for a service member to do with a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, I would also say 2014 to an extent. I mean, a lot of the plot points involve military tactics as well as military involvement. Like the military is very heavily involved. You know, in the AIT base, we were all next to EODs, you know, explosive ordnance disposals. So I actually got to see some EODs.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that certain aspects of, you know, weapons manufacturing and retrofitting bombs, like that kind of stuff, the fact that it made it into the film and was even if it was just like a small little detail, tells me that whoever wrote this, I don't remember if it was Max Bornstein or Gareth Edwards himself.
I think it was Bornstein.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, I think he he either conversed with service members, which would make sense for the type of movie that this is, or he is a service member himself, because
I think
that kind of knowledge.
I
can
know
only
they
come
definitely they had a deal with the military similar to what Michael Bay did with the Transformers series, but I think to like a lesser degree.
Wait, a lesser degree?
Yeah, because I think because a lot of the characters and like actors who were in the Transformers movies did more direct military training than I think any of the people in the Godzilla movie did. So
Really?
yeah. I remember what's it called? Y'all remember? I forget. I think it was F29 who did it. Who put it in the server? It was the guy who did the video on Transformers and it being military propaganda.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah, he does mention that.
Yeah, we talked about that. And Adam got frustrated because of the title.
But it's like also just wrong too. Or like
yeah.
But I think another thing too would like something I'd love to see in a Godzilla film is see how after an initial engagement you actually see the inner workings of how the military would respond to Godzilla and sort of break up formations and armor in a way to maximize the soldiers that they have on the field and who are deployed in order to better counteract how Godzilla behaves, rather than just being like, let's do the same plan again. Has the military actually done anything significant? Not really. We'll just put more vehicles on the field, and that's obviously what the military would do. I.e. Godzilla 98.
You know, I've been wanting to, but I don't think I'm ever going to because I'm just way too scared of asking an NCO like, hey, if Godzilla was real, what do you think the army would do? I'm just terrified of asking because or like I didn't bother ask, and I don't think I'm ever going to. Because
I think they did. I think there was one NCO who did who was like asked, and they did like a article on it. Officer talks.
Yeah, I just looked back. I did find the purchase. It was back in June for Yongari.
Well, what's it called? You should have got one recently when they started doing all of the
Yeah, I didn't get the tracking email at all.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. I looked around multiple times. Nothing.
Strange.
I just sent him a DM, so don't worry. Should be getting back to me at some point, hopefully. But yeah.
See, I know that the military has a plan, a contingency plan for something like even as crazy as like a zombie apocalypse. I'm aware of that. It sounds crazy, but apparently that's a thing. But yeah, I've been scared of asking because, like, imagine just trainee. What the heck are you talking about? I'm scared.
I wouldn't tell Saul.
I would honestly believe. I would honestly believe that the U.S. military would have a contingency plan for something like freaking Cthulhu.
Okay, that's a bit much.
Just roll over. Like, bro, it's just done.
Trainee, if you see Cthulhu, just die. All right. just die.
Do what the Japanese did during the Second World War.
Or do what let it happen. Do what the pilots of the planes from 9/11 did. Just
okay. I think I found it. Permalink. Let's see if this works. Because I think this might be a clip from the old article. Hopefully it works. I'll be very sad if it doesn't. Okay. It does not. But apparently I found like one of the technical advisors for Godzilla 2014 talked about this.
Oh.
Yeah. Business Insider Godzilla military officer. Yeah, let's see if that works. Signify. Okay. Yeah. This might not be the one I'm thinking of. Well, apparently, because I'm not finding the exact. Is it this one? There it is. Yeah, I found it. Okay. Actually, I'm just going to put it on screen, so that'll be fun. There we go. Skibbity bibbity. remember there's a guy who called the government for a zombie apocalypse video or something. He might have called the military bases too or something. Interesting. But yeah, Business Insider. Here's how the military would actually fight Godzilla. His name literally looks like Palladia. It just sounds very New Yorkish, but when Godzilla roars into the theaters this Friday, cinema's greatest powers will go up against the world's largest military, the U.S. Armed Forces. But how much of a chance would the U.S. military actually have against a 355-foot tall radioactive Godzilla? To find out, we spoke with the film's military technical advisor, retired Sergeant Major James Denver, and asked how the U.S. military would hypothetically take on the monster, and more importantly, whether they could do it. The military would be very successful, said Dever. With the manpower and the equipment we have, we'd definitely be successful in taking down Godzilla. The armed forces would use all their means, he added. The Air Force would use their F-15s and F-16s, Marine Corps with their F-18s and Harrier jets, the United States Navy with their F-18s and aircraft carriers. If that didn't work, ground troops would be moving in and using the M1 Abrams tanks. Even though Dever predicted the military would win in an all-out run, he did see two complications that would pose the most difficulties: Godzilla's fiery atomic breath and the battle taking place in a densely populated city. In the movie, Godzilla eventually surfaces in San Francisco. Once he's in the city, our major concern are all the civilians, said Dever. The military put their combined effort to move all the civilians out before we can engage them. While Godzilla would realistically take on all branches, the movie primarily focuses on the U.S. Navy. Scenes, blah, blah, blah. Navy lieutenant. According to Dever, the use of the Navy makes sense given its use of ships, sonar, and submarines would have the best advantage of tracking and taking down the amphibious monster. The Navy, have the advantages of tracking, following in the air and in the seas. Another pressing question in real-life battle with Godzilla would be if the U.S. would consider using a nuclear weapon, especially considering the monster's radioactive history. Dever said it may be an option if the military felt it could work. However, the ultimate decision would come from the president and would only be used after civilians were evacuated. He added that even though the battle would be unlike any other, it wouldn't be too long before Godzilla was eventually destroyed. It's not a known thing fighting monsters, but we'd give it our best and hope we go down and he would go down in a day or two.
So yeah, imagine just saying that, showing this article to one of those Godzilla fans that deify him to a almost cultish degree and treat him like Goku. Like, no, what if he was like Godzilla Earth?
Granted, that's also assuming that Godzilla. That's also assuming that Godzilla would function in the way that he would in the film. So we actually apply real life science. He wouldn't be able to come on land. Period.
Yeah, I think if anything, literally, I remember when this article came out, and the two things you heard was either, well, Godzilla's immune to all military attacks, so he actually wouldn't work. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Or, bro, if Godzilla's weird, Godzilla was real, square cube law, bro.
I hate that argument so much. The square cube law, like we're assuming that the square cube law doesn't apply. Like that's already automatically the assumption.
Well, yeah, if Godzilla existed in our real world, then that would throw the idea of the square cube law into question to begin with.
Yeah, we'd be completely ignoring that. Like that's not, that is a complete non-factor into the conversation because then the let's say if we're dealing with hypotheticals, then that kind of defeats the purpose of the hypothetical to begin with, because we are assuming that the laws of physics work in such a way that they allow for the existence of Godzilla to begin with. Like that shouldn't need to be said.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I agree. Like we should try and kill Godzilla if he shows up. America.
Which version we talking? Because
Godzilla 98.
Dennis Gojira is very different from something like Godzilla Ultima.
Godzilla 98.
Sure.
That actually I rewatched that movie. Getting rid of, considering the problems, considering the worst case scenario that the film presents.
Yeah. I actually rewatched the film today. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. It didn't upset me as much as I thought it was gonna upset me. And honestly, it turned out to be a whole lot better than I originally had it in my mind. It's still
Black, you're banned from the stream.
Yeah. I was just gonna say it's still not very good.
Mm-hmm.
However, I did enjoy it more than I did GVK. And at least I will give it this. It's not trying to convince me that having Godzilla around is a net positive for humanity. Ironically enough, however, this is possibly one of the least destructive Godzillas. The least. Because the majority of the damage is caused by the military being absolutely retarded. So I am honestly kind of. It feels like a breath of fresh air because when I last watched King of the Monsters, like I left off of the scene where Emma Russell explains why she did what she did to Mark Russell. I felt kind of preached to, like the film was preaching to me. But then seeing this, this movie was just a breath of fresh air. You know, it feels like I was standing for my entire life and I just sat down when I watched that movie. 98.
You're very lucky. You're very lucky right now. I cannot kick you from this.
Hey, I'm not saying the movie's good. I'm not saying the movie's good. I have I have like a lot of problems, especially regarding the plot. But maybe there are some stuff that I'm missing. It's entirely possible that I'm missing some plot elements that may or may not make any sense. But yeah,
well, I'd say probably, if anything, actually, if you think about it, probably 98 would have killed more people hypothetically than 2014 has, since they were expecting those monsters to make landfall and they already got most of those people into shelters, whereas Godzilla in 98, when it appears on land, directly makes its way through a unsuspected New York. Not to mention all the digging he did would have killed so many people below ground to begin with. So, but they don't talk about death tolls in either or.
That is true. I'm guessing why I say that is because the destruction and the death in 2014 is a lot more visible and explicit than compared to 98. I mean, there is some. I remember seeing a deleted scene from 2014 where there were some people who that were trapped in the mines, or in the mines at the very beginning of the movie, which I honestly don't know why they cut that. That was perfect for like setting the tone and everything. But there were some corpses there, I think mummified by the radiation.
No, they were mute. They were like mutilated by it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Honestly, given how the rest of the movie is, that would have been so cool. But I think it might have been more disappointing because it would have set such a different tone from how the film later on.
True. And on that, I don't mean to like go off topic, but it also really like the more I rewatch the movie and the more I see Joe Brody dying over and over again, the more I think his death was complete bull. I mean, I feel like he could have survived that if he wanted to. Like he could have held on to the handlebars as the bridge collapsed, and I think he would have been fine.
Well, it definitely feels like one of those scenes to where like they really wanted some way to get him out of the plot, and that was the most convenient time to do it, which is unfortunate considering the fact that he is the most interesting character of that movie.
Yeah, it sucks. And I think my favorite moment with Ford, like speaking of interesting characters, my favorite moment with Ford is when he's talking with his father, when his father's trying to convince him to go with him to back home, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to hear this." And you can see, like, you can tell that Aaron Taylor Johnson, like, he's putting up a good performance, and then just after that, it just kind of spirals downhill.
The problem with his character is the fact that he feels like a military character written by someone who doesn't have too much of an interest in military culture and thinks that like people in the military are like these like stoic family man types and that's like all they are, when in reality, like if they wanted to portray a lieutenant as a lieutenant in the military in his day-to-day life, the film would probably be like rated R, honestly, just by his scenes alone.
I would want to see that.
I would love to see like a what's it called, a Generation Kill, but it's them fighting Godzilla.
I would just love to see a rated R Godzilla movie, like no matter what. Like it doesn't matter what they do, as long as it's rated R and it's Godzilla, I'm down.
Closest thing you'll get is Project Nemesis.
Yeah.
Wait, what was that one again? Project Nemesis? I don't. Hold on.
It's kaiju. It's a kaiju book.
It's a book.
I keep bringing up. Yeah, it's Godzilla 2014, 2 years before Godzilla 2014, with a better human cast, more reminiscent of Godzilla the series.
Mm.
It's good.
Interesting.
I think I love the fact that I just noticed just how close everyone is right here.
And that's a lot of fish too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fish. Well, the fact that, like, again, you got all these dudes here and just shooting their guns, but then finally use missiles instead of, when you actually had the opportunity to attack him when he was surprised to shoot the missiles first.
Yeah. When the Twin Towers appeared in this movie, I laughed out loud so uncontrollably.
That's like one of those things about like post 9/11 films is the fact that it's so jarring to see the Twin Towers in any film.
For me, the entire helicopter chase of the film was just the funniest thing about it.
I love how they just assumed. First off, they just assumed that Godzilla was dead after like firing at it a couple times in a hole in the building that they have no idea Godzilla is in, and then they just automatically assume whenever Godzilla disappears, oh, I think we lost him.
Oh, I think
it's like the military members here don't have any semblance of object permanence.
Yeah, no, like I feel so bad for them. I feel so bad for Mayor Ebert in this movie. He's like my favorite human character because he's like the only guy who's like making any sort of trying to make some level of sense of like, you fucking idiots. Like, how can you not kill this thing?
Like, the mayor in this movie might be the smartest character in the movie.
Well, he's the smartest character by virtue of like the military just being so incompetent.
Exactly.
Yes.
Personally speaking, I prefer
the
Jean
French
Reno's
guy.
character.
Who?
Personally speaking, I prefer Jean Reno's character.
Oh, the French guy? No, he's also. I would also say, well, by virtue of him having more screen time, that technically makes him the smartest character in the movie. But I would also say like the mayor is also really high up there as well. The French character, he actually. I'd forgotten because I've seen this movie back when I was a kid. I've seen 98 when I was a kid, and I'd forgotten just how, like, for example, Animal's wife just calling him a retard out of nowhere. That made me laugh so hard. Like, I wasn't expecting that. I was like, why don't I remember this?
Or the fact that like he literally is like he tells Audrey and his wife, "Oh yeah, threesome."
Yeah, just casually talking about his wife's friend.
Like literally, it's this scene right here. They're like, "Oh yeah, let's prepare to fire, guys."
And he might be here, even though he sneaked behind places before. Let's just assume that he's here instead of verifying the location.
No, but
by the way, that building would not be standing right like that.
The fact is that like you don't see like Godzilla at all. All you hear is this roar. So even when you're looking at the scene, you have no clue what they're shooting at.
And you don't have any idea like where the roar is even coming from. You could, for all we know, it could be coming from behind them, which it absolutely would because Godzilla's behind you.
Yeah.
Or no, like right here.
Unintentionally, by portraying the military in this stupid fashion, it also lends credence to Godzilla in a way being a danger because he's smart.
Well, he's smart because they're stupid. If they were written competently, then Godzilla would be
smart.
Exactly.
The fact that he's able to juke them like this is
Godzilla's smart because they are because they are. It's such a funny sentence.
I am smart because they are dumb. Therefore, I am not dumb. But like, ready?
If you're the smartest man in the room, then you're in the wrong room.
You guys use lizard brain as an insult. But look at me.
No, but I love this right here. Because ready? When I just fly up. Like he literally careened up there.
Yeah, you could have kept flying. And then he went back down. He goes back down so that he has to dodge. You don't have to do all that.
Right here.
Keep flying up.
I think I lost. No, right here. Literally,
him.
You think that he could just, take his helicopter, fly up there, survey the area? Maybe if he's
like at this point, I have to pause the movie and ask audibly, brother, do you know what a helicopter is and why we call it that?
Or no, ready? It's this scene right here. Because look, they had just ascended down so they know how to do it too.
I mean, they would because they're pilots. They're pilots. They should know how to fly a helicopter, right?
Because you want to know what's even funnier is the fact is that like you can make this scene work if instead of Godzilla running away, they move out of range because it kind of does hurt Godzilla, and instead Godzilla digs underground or literally runs circles to try to gain momentum and jumps higher every time to hit these things. Or like literally just digs below, and once they descend low to try to make a location, he ends up swiping one down. and as a result, they don't know whether to fly up higher because he may jump out, danger more, and like destroy more buildings, or if they get lower, they have a better chance of finding him, but they're also a better chance of dying. So, like,
yeah. I mean, wait, hold on. What were the missiles that were fired at him at the end of the movie?
What's it called?
They were fired from jets.
I think F-18s.
F8. And did they have those missiles beforehand?
I mean, yeah, it's F-18s. So
yeah, so it's safe to assume that he was shot at with those missiles earlier in the movie, right?
Probably. But here's the other thing too: is that I just realized I'm on the wrong screen. That's
wrong screen
because it shows all the vehicles that they show here in the movie.
Right.
Because something else interesting I noticed as well. Oh, this is the character screen. I just want the movie. Please. There we go. Yeah, the anti-Godzilla tank. I didn't realize that this right here was apparently a fictionalized tank. So even when they have fictionalized material for some reason, they still, like, I don't know why they just use real tanks or base it off of an actual tank. And I never realized that they had one of these in another series, Soldier's Fortune.
No, I'm mainly asking because if the military were more competent,
F-18s.
Yeah, so the reason why I ask is that if the military was more competent, they could have just killed it at the very beginning of the movie. Or not not at the very beginning, but the moment he appeared and the moment the military showed up to defend the city from Godzilla, the same night in which he appeared was the same night he could have died if the military was just slightly more competent.
Oh no, definitely. But what's it called? Here is right here. This is the only vehicle you need to take down Godzilla.
The Warthog.
The A-10 Warthog.
Haven't those appeared in a Godzilla movie previously?
The A-10 Warthog?
I think one showed up in Rampage.
I know it was in Rampage.
I know one of them showed up in Rampage. I know one of them showed up in Rampage. I know about that. But
you think it's an American Godzilla movie? Because I know the JSDF doesn't have A-10s.
I should rewatch Rampage.
G-Fest, he got a shirt with the A-10 Warthog and
wait, repeat what you said.
The Shinden. I'm assuming the Warthog it's reference to Rampage or a different kaiju movie.
Yeah, GMK would be only
the Shinden was obviously in -1.
Yeah. That's not right, guys. Amazing. I don't think it's in the Kiryu films. Either one.
Y'all think the Javelin could have taken on 98? Because I think it could. Like I've seen the Javelin. It's an anti-tank missile.
Yeah,
because like my MOS had was mainly focused on that. So I've seen videos of the Javelin being used on tanks. That thing vaporizes tanks. Like it was completely gone.
Yeah.
Once it was fired.
So here's the thing. Is that I know for a fact that for the A-10 Warthog, not only does it have better equipment than, let me go back here. Or nope, wrong one. I just realized I have to go all the way back to 98 this way. Oh, why did I do this to myself? I really did did myself dirty for this. But yeah, so I know for a fact that an A-10 has better hard points than an F-18 or an Apache. And also, it's going to do better than this. An A-10 is just literally designed to mess things up. Not to mention at 420 miles, that's still faster than 98 at his top speed that at least they say in the special features for the movie is 400 miles. So at 400 miles, the A-10 is still going to be able to keep pace because that was the issue they had with the Apaches was the fact that they couldn't keep pace with them. So as a result, there's a lot of things that the United States Army could have done to take down Godzilla.
420. Nice.
I just realized, if the military was more competent and they were able to kill Godzilla, the first time he showed up, during that fish scene, the rest of the plot, at least the part of the plot that involves the hatchlings in Madison Square Garden, you wouldn't even have to change a thing about that. You just wouldn't have Godzilla show up at the end.
But you wouldn't have Godzilla show up at the end, not to mention the fact you wouldn't have the eggs hatch because if we're going by the logic that the
right. He would have to
eggs,
be able to feed the eggs or the hatchlings. Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't be able to feed the eggs, but if we're saying that the eggs always hatch at the same time in universe, then they're able to find the nest long before they even hatch. But if we're going to believe that the eggs will just hatch whenever you get to them, then there's going to be more service members inside the inside of New York to deal with it. Because
wait a minute! I just realized something. When Nick Tatopoulos picks up that sample and he reads it as he's pregnant, that's that pretty much means that the eggs weren't would that just imply that the eggs weren't even laid before? Weren't even laid yet? When he got that sample.
Well, I'd say possibly, because that's another thing entirely. But I think if I recall correctly, when Audrey asks about him being pregnant, Nick was like, the fish that they found beneath the fish we found in the subway, he's not looking to feed himself, he's looking to feed his young. That can imply that either he had just laid them or was going to. But for example, the only weapon we actually see anyone fight the baby Zillas with is a mock-up of an MP5. An MP5 is at most shooting 9mm. This is a civilian version here, but we just switch over all the variants and stuff. You're again just shooting 9mm versus everything else you see in the film. At least this 5.56, 223, same deal. You can grenade launchers, spazzes. Again, carrying an M60, 7.62, which is about same as a 30-06 essentially. But yeah,
you could also make the argument that they wouldn't have access to most military resources, but also said, this is a French agency. It's possible they could get something like this from the French government.
Oh yeah, well, what's it called? I think all the weapons they had were smuggled, but.
Yeah.
If we're talking about French, if the French were directly fighting against Godzilla, then they'd be pulling up with FAMASs, G36, things of that nature. Essentially, they'd be rolling up with similar equivalents to what the U.S. has. But if the U.S. had found it instead of the French, then the babies would have been cleared out longer because you've got all of this. Again, this, not to mention if they just surround the building with Brownings, then boom, that's gone. Same deal with literally just being hey, we're in Madison Square Garden. Let's just get a bunch of Apaches and circle Madison Square Garden. Anything that runs out of there, just mow it down with a 30mm chain gun. Or grenade launchers.
Or just do what you did in the film and set the place on fire.
Well, you don't even need to set the place on fire, because if you're able to go in with all of these weapons here, that definitely would be able to put down a baby Zilla.
Just be remember, no Russian.
Zim, you should check out what I wrote in chat.
What this?
Yeah, it's the pregnant man emoji.
Oh
Jesus!
Why?
It's Zilla.
Do you know if G-Fest is getting a bigger place next year? They're not. The venue isn't changing, but if I've heard correctly, they are getting more rooms for more places, so everything's gonna be a little bit more spread out. So it's gonna be a little bit more roomy. So it's gonna be less congested like it was this year. I'd say the only issue would be any babies using the opening below to escape, if not the building itself. Well, that's the thing, is that if Nick. Well, they even got through the building via the opening in the ground. If Nick realizes that they're going to Madison Square Garden and they just follow the tunnels, then you're going to have service members downstairs, down below the opening and above it. But we also don't see in the film any of the babies using the tunnel below to get down there. So
I'm surprised Vic isn't here.
He's at work right now. The stream was set up for him, but he's at work.
Okay.
So
yeah, see, it would be a shame, if we continue to besmirch his sacred cow.
Well, what's it called? I mean, I already make hamburgers out of that every day, essentially. So
that's awesome. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, you want hamburgers? I mean, it's not like we're cooking up a Wagyu or anything. But I mean, you want skirt, tomahawk, tenderloin. You tell me, I cook it.
Hey, I'm pretty sure that out of defect we ate dog at some point. I'll take anything. I don't care. No. I remember talking to Braden about 98 one time, and he did mention that Roland Emmerich, the design philosophy that he had for Zilla. I'm not gonna. Yeah, no, he had the design philosophy. It was a. Just look it up. Look it up. Look it up. I'm not gonna. I can't say this. I can't.
That was supposed to be sexy.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
In the worst possible way.
Isn't there visible female genitalia on the design?
Literally, it's so bad. It's not connected. Yes, that is correct. There is a visible genitalia on it, as well as I think that I have the saved article for the thing about it being sexy, because for some reason the website that had that article wanted me to pay like a premium subscription for that, and I'm like, no. So I found a way to download it. But one sec. Vic said I'll hop on. Oh, Vic says he's hopping on in a few.
Oh.
Okay, cool.
Oh, well, never mind.
And one sec, Black's back, as well as it looks like someone from the.
I did a thing. I don't know what it did, but it just kicked me out.
That's okay. Well, literally, just the idea of a what's it called? The idea of the Zilla sexiness is what drove you away, as it should for anyone.
Yeah, I don't know what Roland Emmerich meant by that, or why he decided that was something that.
It's the 90s. What would you expect?
Yes,
bulging biceps and amazing awesomeness.
I know it's the 90s, but we're talking about a giant lizard here. You don't need to make it.
We almost got that.
Roland Emmerich literally admitted that he didn't even want to do Godzilla. Maybe it was his way of telling everyone that in a subtle.
Well, no, like literally, that is something he's like.
The only reason he got on this project was so he could do something like Independence Day again.
Yeah, even though, like, literally, what's even funnier about that is the fact that Independence Day is such a stereotypical alien invasion movie, but for some reason he makes Godzilla not a stereotypical monster movie.
Yo, Roland, if you wanted to do Independence Day again, why did it take it 20 years?
Also, what's it called? This right here, this is what I think of when I think of like a 90s looking Godzilla. Just like, looks like it's coming straight out of like DC at the time with like Nightfall or Image or Dark Horse. That's what I think of when if someone wants to tell me what is a 90s Godzilla.
I mean, that's kind of not that far off from what we got. If you look at the Heisei design.
But it's like an overly muscular Heisei design, which again I still find more interesting than.
It's an exaggerated
I need that design, and I need it now. I need it.
I love it.
Or that, or the Stan Winston version.
Oh yeah,
because Stan Winston is peak. It's
peak.
You know,
the goat.
I kind of wish the dorsal plate. I kind of wish the dorsal plates were a lot bigger than what they are.
Design?
But other than that, like the Stan Winston design is.
I think it's just an issue with the model, with the concept art. They don't look too bad. I think
they don't. They really don't.
And I think like also the other thing too is that like it was a mock-up, so we don't know whether or not anything was going to change between like we actually got
more
or not.
Noticeably hunched down. It's a dark.
Yeah. Let me pull that up.
Yeah, and me personally, I do not like the fact that the movie was originally going to be a versus, a different monster, but the design for the monster, as well as the griffin, the design and the different things the different versions of the griffin that were going to be involved in the movie it's like so unique and creative that I really wouldn't mind. But the griffin kind of reminds me of Bagan in a sense, where it's got different forms and each form looks very different but with enough familiarity where you can say, oh yeah, this is what a lesser version of this character would look like.
Yeah,
it's still like recognizable within all forms, but it's still different enough where it might as well be just
Rudy,
its own monster.
I mean, Rudy, if you want a backup option for the non-versus one, there's always the original idea from 1983 of
the Steve Miner one.
The Steve Miner one, which was basically Gorgo.
Essentially, yeah.
Really?
The other thing too is that like even though this one right here, which I know was done by Eric Zilla, and this and this, every time I've looked at the Griffin versus Godzilla, they just feel like they aesthetically go together. Whereas like the Muto versus Godzilla 2014, they look so, their design philosophy seems so different from each other. It's kind of jarring when I see them go at it with each other.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, you have Godzilla versus manga, so it's not that.
I wonder
it's
what
not the worst.
I wonder what the Griffin would look like if Legendary took a crack at it. Because I'm looking at designs on Google right now. I'll send it to you if you.
I'll probably be able to find it.
Okay. Yeah, Jared Modena design made like Legendary's version of the Griffin, Rockmutal. Well, Rockmutal was already
it was a legendary design.
Vishnu and Pterodaku.
Yeah, pterodactyl. It was like a weird way of spelling it, which I never understood.
Yeah, it's kind of like how the Japanese say destroyer. It's supposed to be destroyer, but they say destroyer. I prefer destroyer over like destroyer because destroyer sounds kind of
generic.
Destroyer doesn't sound any better, but it sounds better, but not you know what I mean.
Well, destroyer just kind of sounds a bit generic, whereas destroyer, there's like a little bit of like
there's
like
more
an
oomph
attempt
to
at
it.
giving some oomph to oomph. Just go,
Oh, look who it is! He's finally here.
Heyo.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting you guys. Are you here to help me beat up Zim?
I'll take you all on.
I'll take you all. Give me your face.
Just I still love that movie, even though there's so many problems with it.
My favorite scene is which one is this? Which one is the movie where I forgot who his name was, but he had the testicles?
Devastator. That's Revenge of the Fallen.
Okay, yeah. That I love that scene so much.
Yeah,
It just embodies everything Michael Bay. Because I think Michael Bay is just like the fun version of Zack Snyder.
Yeah, he really is.
A little bit, yeah. I would say I like Dark of the Moon a lot more than Revenge of the Fallen.
I like Revenge of the Fallen more, but with Dark of the Moon, I think had a better ending fight between Sentinel and Optimus. And
Yeah, they should have left it alone after that. Yeah, it was like Dark of the Moon was like it's weird to say perfect because it's definitely not a perfect movie, but like it's like a very fitting conclusion to that series.
Yeah.
Like
I only really like Age of Extinction because Grimlock was in it. But like I'd say out of like the first three films, my favorite designs from them was probably Dark of the Moon's Shockwave. I love his design for that film.
Oh yeah.
She Grimlock on my Allspark. I call that Sloptimus Prime.
Oh God.
Oh jeez.
By the way, Zim, so are you a fellow Grimlock stan?
Oh, I love Grimlock. Is obviously my favorite Transformer.
Yeah, baby.
Of course. I'm not a big Transformers fan, but always love Grimlock. Always love the Dinobots.
Yeah. Grimlock is tied with Unicron as my second favorite Transformer.
Out of my three favorites, probably Grimlock, Soundwave, and maybe probably Shockwave, actually. Shockwave, Soundwave, and Grimlock are my three favorites.
Nice.
I'm not sure if you guys know this, but apparently G1, like the second season of G1, I told Minecraft World about this in my previous stream. They actually did do an episode involving Arthurian legend, like King Arthur and Merlin. So we can't even say that Transformers: The Last Knight did it first. It was only
I was just about to bring that up. I learned about it. Yes, you saw that. What's his name? That the Pointless Hub video on.
Yeah,
you saw
that's how I learned about it.
It's such a mindfuck because I never expected. I mean, then again, like with the sheer and utter silliness of the G1 Transformers, I kind of expect it, but at the same time, I also didn't expect a movie to like have that, but at the same time, it probably should have because it's Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Like of all people, yeah, you give one of the most recognizable and beloved franchises to a director like Michael Bay. Like, yeah, no, you're cooked.
You're a wizard, Harry. You're a wizard,
You're a
Prime.
wizard.
Prime, you're a wizard.
The age of wizards is over. No more dark magic. Follow me, and you will never again be tricked. Rise up!
Or what's it called? The age of wizards is over. Parry this, you filthy casual. Parry this, wizard.
Imagine just Megatron is a healer, like, I'm done saving you.
No, what's it called? When the mage has just had enough, I'm done healing you.
Oh, you know what?
I'm gonna be right back. My family's calling me for dinner, so.
All right.
All right. Megatron looks up and he goes like, "I'm an inventor. This could be a game changer for me." And he just drops him.
I'm an inventor.
I'm an inventor.
Vic,
Yes.
you wanted to do this. I'll let you get the floor to begin this fun little discussion here.
Well, basically, I mostly just wanted to use or just continue a discussion stream because I first brought up a while back when we had a conversation on Twitter. I forget exactly which one it was, but I know that it was like a conversation of like I guess just debating on whether or not like Zilla and the Godzilla 98 are like either different characters or if one's an offshoot of another. And then the other dilemma of the like recent stuff of like Japan is the only place where it can be Godzilla 98 or something like that. I just wanted to go more in depth with that. Since I personally still don't really understand what the deal is with that. And such, and I guess just going more in depth with it and like talking about it.
Alrighty. Well, at least if I bring up all of these slides I do have, because obviously there's been the new release of the specifically Godzilla 98 Bandai versus the Zilla 98 Bandai, and if I'm gonna go back down to this last slide here, at least this is all related to Shinichi Wakasa, and this was from Henshin Online when they talked about Final Wars back in the day. Wakasa says Zilla, they say the American Godzilla, and mentions how essentially, let me go down, yes, with Henshin Online explained that since Toho owns the character and the likeness of the American Godzilla, they wouldn't have to ask for Patrick Topples' permission, but I can understand might seem implied. Just so essentially, even as far back as early 2003, 2004, the idea of the American Godzilla and Zilla essentially being synonymous, where recently with the release of the new Bandai, Wakasa had mentioned that the US Godzilla and Zilla have the same design, with someone asking why the Bandais are different, and Wakasa stated that's probably because the sculpture is different for each piece, as just his speculation. And another person mentioning that it has the same design as Emergoji, and they may look different because the Japanese CGI technology at the time is not as advanced, which has almost like been the case in my estimations for a while, because Shinji Nishikawa states in the new Godzilla Encyclopedia that a monster that looks exactly like Godzilla appeared in the Hollywood TriStar version of Godzilla 98, and then under the name Zilla, the confrontation with Godzilla was a battle between a pseudo creature and a CGI monster. Hollywood version of Godzilla, so essentially this is another source that states that they're essentially the same. The Godzilla Encyclopedia, which I think came out like late 2016, also mentions how Godzilla, the American Godzilla and Zilla are the same. Another picture from that same encyclopedia mentioning it's a meta play on Roland Emmerich's recent American reimagining. And when the Zilla Bandai was coming out, Shinichi Wakasa mentioning that Zilla would make Patrick Tatopoulos happy, and in this shot right here, Tatopoulos mentioning that he is the designer of Zilla, implying that the creatures are the same. And then in an earlier source book, they mentioned how Godzilla 98 exists on its own, but also down here with GMK, and Shusuke Kaneko mentioning that the TriStar Godzilla existed, but is not Godzilla within that timeline. And then this was right here, the talk about the trademark with Zilla and how Spiral's original like statue for the Legacy series Zilla was done specifically in the US, where the version 2 Godzilla 98 is specifically for Japan only in terms of any of its shipments and things of that nature. But, and also the idea that, oh, well, because the figures are different, that means the designs are different. But then by this logic, this is the What's the Story About Godzilla, the kids book, where they show a version of Godzilla 98 that doesn't look exactly the same as Godzilla 98. So if we're going by the metric of it has to look like Godzilla 98 to be Godzilla 98 or Zilla, then this can't be Godzilla 98, even though they're calling it Godzilla 98. Or the fact that in this interview with Kaiju United, they mentioned how Godzilla faced off against the American Godzilla and how they had the rights for that creature, meaning the American Godzilla, which they again do not differentiate it between Zilla and Godzilla 98. But that is my small spiel.
I didn't pay attention to 90% of that.
Don't worry about it. We'll be able to.
All I have to say with the Bandai figures is 2 down, 3 to go.
3 to go.
Those being Junior, Rulers of Earth, and Gaziban.
I have a
look. Considering the fact that they haven't done a any figures for Rulers of Earth, I doubt that we'll see a Rulers of Earth one.
Yeah, fair. But Junior and Gaziban is probably the most likely to get because.
Yeah, they have done Godzilla figures already, but they'll probably want to go through the other cast members before they get to the newer ones.
Mm-hmm.
So,
logic behind what they did with Zilla in that show, like, what? Good on your transition, but like, what the hell? Why do you have to look like that?
Yeah. So the debate over the 2 different designs, as far as is mainly just because of like one figure made him look different from another, pretty much.
Well, the recent discussions have crawled up because the Zilla figure looks so different from the 98 design that essentially it confirms to some that they are 2 different characters, when the person who was behind the effects for the movie literally states that they're the same design, and in an earlier tweet had mentioned Zilla 98 while he's next to a maquette for Godzilla 98. So there's that.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about that. I've always here's the thing. Like, I've always just kind of figured that Zilla, like Final Wars Zilla, is pretty much a different character from the 98 Godzilla because really, like, how do you even reconcile a continuity between those 2 movies? Like, you can't really.
Well, also you can't really reconcile a continuity between the Kiryu saga and 54, since we see in 54 Godzilla's bones dissolve, wherein against Mechagodzilla they retcon that to change. So
true, but the thing is, like, 98 Godzilla never references anything about like an actual a real Godzilla or anything or any other monsters existing in that world, like as if the Godzilla that we see in 98 was like the first instance of the world even seeing a monster.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, what's it called? Things like that get retconned all the time. Same would also go for 54 in Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, or the fact that even in the Kiryu duology as well,
GMK kind of managed to circumvent the whole thing by alluding to 98 being in the past.
Yeah, or they also mention the fact in Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, they state both Gyra and Mothra were destroyed by the JSDF, whereas in both of the actual films they aren't, and it's never referenced that Mothra was killed previously in Tokyo SOS.
Yeah.
I would always say it's just a matter of alternate versions within different universes.
Yeah, the thing is, like, Final Wars, like it's like, yeah, like, the thing is, like, there's I always kind of like figured that 98 and Final Wars were like in different continuities with each other. You know, like, they're not.
Final Wars only shares continuity technically with itself.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. Like, Final Wars is like it's a whole beast of its own in terms of like it, like it it would just be really. I don't know what I'm trying. I don't know what I'm trying to get at here. It's just.
Well, I mean, it's just a matter of them being in different universes. Like 98 exists, or like the whole TriStar continuity exists in and of itself, and then there are other films that have the events or allude to similar events
Yeah.
to that in their own universes, which
Yeah,
they don't inherently affect one another, but they just have their own continuities.
Yeah, I mean, like, because you get like, because the Kiryu duology like is at least trying to be like, trying to have like stick to like in one continuity, or at least like with some, obviously they tweak like events in 54 for sure. They retcon
they
that.
tweak events and they retcon a lot of movies, like way more than I think people realize they do.
Oh yeah, no, I mean they do. Yeah, they do. But at least they try to unify it within some. They try to have it somewhat in unified continuity, with with themselves more or less. But it's just that they didn't do maybe not the best job at it, but at least there was an attempt. Yeah, whereas like Final Wars, it's like it's something. It's in a separate thing. It's not even.
Yeah, but then the question also comes with GMK and how it handles that continuity shift.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that too.
An argument I would always say in regards to GMK and how it brings up the continuity, I would say at most it would be similar to how in GMK you already have people who sort of either forget and or deny that Godzilla ever existed. I would say that with the caveat of like it's on par with like Holocaust deniers, but there's like something there.
That is certainly a comparison.
That's a comparison, yeah.
Mathematically speaking,
there's no way a giant monster could appear on land based on the ideas of the square cube law.
Mathematically, I'm just thinking like, where did they go? I'm just kidding.
Because in 98 at most they only reference the like Gojira legend itself, but no mention of like there actually being another monster called Godzilla.
Sure, but like if the argument is that we can retcon the events of 54 to suit the aims of another film, then GMK retconning the events of 2 films isn't really that big of a deal either.
Well, that's the thing. I'm not saying it's any big deal or not. I'm just saying the retcons of one continuity shouldn't really affect the continuity of like whatever film came before or whatever story.
Well, we're less talking about the retcons of the continuity itself and more what the creature is outside of its own continuity.
Sure.
Because like it'll be the same thing as like there is a continuity where Thomas Wayne is Batman, but when you think of the character of Thomas Wayne, you don't really call him Batman. You just say Thomas Wayne, Father Bruce Wayne. Like we don't really do the caveat of he is Batman at one point. One character that's actually affected in an interesting way is the idea that Hobie Brown, because of the fact that Miles's uncle, Aaron, has become sort of the prime version of Prowler. People forget that Hobie Brown used to be the Prowler, but because Aaron's now a more prominent character in comics, when people think of Hobie Brown as a character, they don't think of him as Hobie Brown the Prowler. They think of him as Hobie Brown Spider-Punk.
Wait, I don't believe in consistency.
What'd you say?
I don't believe in consistency.
No, Vec, what did you say?
Oh, I was just... I didn't know Hobie was the Prowler.
Yeah, Hobie Brown's the original Prowler. I mean...
Nobody told me this. Why did you tell me that, Tim?
You're welcome.
I expect you
to learn something new every day.
That's a
hey, you live and learn.
Live and learn.
Dude, that song has been stuck in my head for the past week.
Dude, Keanu Reeves and Shadows living rent free in my head. Like the way he's.
I still wish they cast Robert Pattinson.
I mean, he did a good job.
Yeah, but Robert Pattinson.
Yeah. So like the original Prowler was Hobie Brown, but then I forget what Aaron's last name is. I thought it was the same.
Davis.
I think it's Aaron Davis, not Aaron Morales. Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you think was Morales?
Because it's what's it called? I always assume Morales was I forget that I thought Morales was the last name of both his brother and him.
Yeah,
Miles'
no,
last name's
Morales
Samus.
is the last name of Rio Morales.
Yeah, that's why I keep
Miles'
forgetting.
dad is, yeah, Jeff Davis. Like
I'm not that again. That shows how much I don't really read any of Miles's comics, or I'm not a fan of the character all that much.
There's not a whole lot to look up to with Miles comics, anyways. But really, that's
another
very
thing.
Common.
Is that
that's very common for especially Latin American families, where sometimes the married woman is not going to adopt the spouse's last name.
Well, that's the thing. True, that's true. Or they like literally will adopt all the last names, and then when you ask them their full name, it is like their father's last name and the spouse's last name.
Yeah, in my case, I adopted both my parents' last names.
Oh, so then you have like 5 full names, and or 5 full like name part of your name.
Nah, 4, because I got a name, middle name, and then 2 last names.
Oh, interesting. Because in my case, it's a first name, 2 middle names, and a last name.
2 middle names. Yeah, that's very common. Some people have 2 middle names, especially in Latino families, which is also kind of weird because sometimes they can get pretty ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying. No, one of the people I know, he has a first name, 2 middle names, and 2 last names.
Yeah, and some people just always pick the most Latino names ever.
Mm-hmm.
Juan Pablo something Morales something. It's always the you just hear Mexico every time you hear those names.
As well as
like Mexico specifically. I'm not Argentina, not Colombia, not Uruguay, not what's this other country? Not Honduras. No, it's always exclusively Mexico. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Viva Mexico.
Viva la Mexico. But yeah, going back to the name thing too. Like, there's also Devil Ray from Justice League Unlimited, because for some reason they couldn't use Black Manta, so then they just made Black Manta but with a different name.
Why couldn't they use Black Manta?
There was like a stipulation with all the DC characters and all the Marvel characters. For some reason, they never like it when there's 2 versions of the same characters on screen, and there's a few characters that have exceptions to that. Batman's one character where you can have multiple Batman, and Joker is one that's more loose, where you can sometimes have multiple Jokers depending on like what time it was made. And in other cases, they don't want people using Joker. Because, for example, in Spider-Man the Animated Series, they didn't have the rights to Sandman or Electro, but they have the rights. They couldn't use them because they were going to be in a live action movie. So then they ended up using Hydro Man in place of Sandman. And I think Electro got introduced way later after that movie fell through.
Mm.
And then that was the same thing too with like a lot of like Batman's rogues as well in the Batman.
Right.
But
yeah, I remember the seeing Firefly and what's the Clue Master, and then and I found it weird that they included Clue Master and the Riddler in the same series, because I just felt like Clue Master's existence was very redundant, especially when he already serves the same purpose, well, similar purpose. He's kind of like a combination between Riddler and Arcade from Marvel.
Yeah,
I bet y'all don't know who Arcade is
from Marvel.
Yeah. Yeah,
No.
Arcade is Marvel's version of the Riddler, basically.
Interesting.
But he's
like
very
another
game-oriented, very like live show video game-oriented. Imagine like an obstacle course, like Wipeout, basically. Imagine that, but if you lose, you die. And he has like this
MXC then.
Park. Yeah, he has this amusement park called the Murder World, which is served. Its only purpose is to try and kill you, basically. And there is a 2099 version that is so slept upon that it might as well not even exist. Who is not present in the comics? Who is kind of similar, but he's more like gaming oriented, right? He's pretty much a gamer video game where he turns everything into like a video. Imagine Tron, but everything's trying to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, so basically Tron, but on steroids.
Yeah.
And he appeared in the DS version of Spider-Man: Edge of Time. That game actually has a lot of original characters, like Overdrive, who's a supervillain that can turn any vehicle she wants into like an assault vehicle. for killing people, and she could easily be a love interest for Miguel if they wanted to go that route. Kind of like the same way how Black Cat is to Peter. Man, I want to see them both make a comeback, especially Overdrive, because she's got a really, really cool design.
Speaking of other characters that like are essentially the same character, but for like one reason or another had to be called something different. There's the fact that in Gotham they couldn't do Joker, so they had his name was always just Jeremiah, and they could never call him actually Joker. Or
I remember
Slade
that.
couldn't be called Deathstroke in the Teen Titans series, so it was just they referred to him as his first name, Slade Wilson.
Slade.
Honest to God, I think it worked for that version of the character specifically.
Slade?
Yeah.
It's like your name's Randy, but your alias is like Deathclaw. But they like,
like Teen Titans was my introduction to Deathstroke. So anytime I hear people, I always kind of figure like, oh hey, it's Slade. Hey.
Well, no, like literally calling him Slade is accurate. That is literally his first name is Slade.
I'm not playing games, Slade. Like in Arkham Origins, when Batman like refers to Deathstroke as Slade, during their boss fight there, I was just like, oh, he's called him that.
He called him it.
I mean, Slade already sounds pretty cool.
He said the thing.
He did it. He said it.
Yeah, Slade already sounds like a pretty cool name, regardless. So I don't really mind the change. I mean, Slade. That's a dope name. I would love to have a name like that.
I'm naming my son that if I get one.
I'm naming my son Enoch.
I name him Carlton. After Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, I thought you were gonna call him Carlton after Carlton Drake, the main villain of the hit film Venom.
Oh yeah, there you go. 2 connections there.
Nobody remembers that freaking movie.
Well, no, literally, the only thing I remembered from that movie was Riot. I didn't even remember Carlton Drake like himself as the character.
Yeah,
all I remember from Riot was the 6 months meme.
6 months in Brazil.
6 months. Every time somebody says the word 6 months in real life, my mind just flashes back to that thumbnail.
Rudy, have you watched Venom 3 yet?
Yes, I have. I liked it a lot more than I thought I was gonna like it, but I did not think it was a good movie.
Yeah, I still need to watch it. I've enjoyed the previous 2, faults and all, but yeah.
Yeah, I hated Let There Be Carnage mainly because of how Carnage was handled.
The funny thing is, like, Let There Be Carnage might actually be like my favorite entry in that Sony's stupid universe there. Like, and I have absolutely like I don't know, maybe it's maybe like the first Venom, I guess, was sort of like a little it was kind of like mediocre in terms of like and not to mention like the whole it seemed like a bit like a little whiplash sort of thing of like, okay, this is not the Venom movie that I would kind of expect, but like once you get to like Venom 2 and 3, it's just like, all right, I've kind of accepted it, and I guess it's like in the sense of like, well, for this particular version of Venom, like this one here, it's like, well, can't beat it, join it, fuck it, why not? So
it's just, I think the Venom movies would have worked better had they just been their own thing and not tried to be the start off of a cinematic universe.
Or the fact that like literally the thing is that like the direction that those films went in is what you'd expect from a series focusing on Venom, where like you're fleshing out the symbiotes more. But like, as cool as Carnage is fighting Venom, Carnage works better fighting Spider-Man, and the Life Foundation doesn't have the same impact when it's literally the first thing that's introduced and it isn't really touched on later on. Or the fact that, like, I'm going to be honest, Null has always been a stupid character. I've never liked Null. I never liked the Necro Sword. Gore was kind of a cool character that was related to the Necro Sword, but like...
I love Gore. He was done dirty in Thor: Love and Thunder. I love him. I love Gore.
I love Gore.
I love Gore too, but when I post it in servers, I get kicked.
No, but Gore the God Butcher is genuinely my favorite comic book villain, partially because of his general presence adding to this unknown nature. In a way, it reminds me, this is a weird comparison, but it reminds me a bit of Destroya. where it's an unknown monster that only wants to kill.
What, for gore?
However, unlike Destroya, there is reason to do so.
I like the concept of a god serial killer to begin with.
The concept is cool, but the thing was that, like, it's just Marvel being Marvel, or just comics being comics, where they will continually revamp their cosmology.
Or Taika Waititi being Taika Waititi and just not giving a shit about tone or anything. That's
that too.
Yeah, I hate also like not only the cosmology, but the aspect of gods. Because like if every single god is like all powerful, all like, and they all have their own unique agendas, completely separate from each other. Like it kind of throws away, it kind of dilutes the word God in the first place. Like you can't just have Norse mythology gods coexist with Greek mythology gods. Have them both be true. All right, there will always be a creation myth for different religions. So when every single religion is true, that kind of works against itself because none of them have
it could work. Myth. But like the thing was that like there was the whole thing with the Celestials and stuff, which was sort of Marvel's creation myth, and that allowed for the other gods to appear. But like they very much were more of that ancient aliens type of vibe, which is what the idea behind the Eternals was, unfortunately, because then that also raises the question of, well, if the Eternals are the old gods, then why do we actually have the actual gods themselves? And it's a matter of like them wanting to keep using these same ideas over and over again. And
and not to mention
continuity.
And not to mention
like the gods to begin with.
Yeah, not to mention like the MCU's continuity. By the time you get to Thor: Love and Thunder, is like such a fucking mess that Taika Waititi just only just kind of exacerbated it with that whole God Council thing, whatever it is. Because here's the thing: when you go outside of the films, like I guess I think apparently Moon Knight also introduced the Egyptian god, so it's just like what the fuck?
Yeah.
Okay, Rooney. So to your thing with like there can't be multiple gods or worshipped under a different thing.
No, I said that like they can't all be true at the same time because all of them have different creation myths.
As well as like the cosmology also gets affected that way as well.
I mean,
exactly.
Is it not possible for something like, say, different creation myths to be interpreted in different ways?
It can be, but then like you'll see it shown one way, and then how it's shown in another comic ends up contradicting itself. So does it work?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they show us explicitly how creation
you're just
happens.
referring to comics specifically, and not like overall the trope of multiple different religions coexisting.
Yeah. Like one thing is like religions being real, and well, no, and one thing is religions being believed, like multiple characters believe in multiple religions. Another them is all of them being true at the same time, while also saying, "Oh, well, you're saying, oh, the demiurge happened, right?" And we get shown the demiurge. You know, I say the demiurge is an event. It's not an event. You see the demiurge. The demiurge is a thing, but you also see like the God from the Bible also creating the everything and him being the only God. But then you also see, you know, Zeus being the god of gods, and then there's just like so many contradictions between religions, like they can't, and mythologies as well.
Yeah,
they cannot all be true at the same time.
Or the fact that like you'll literally see like the same location in Marvel, but they're contradicted by like other events. So like a good example of this is Namor and Kull. So like when they ended up buying the rights for like Howard's characters in the Marvel cosmology originally, it was like the past with like Conan the Barbarian and stuff like that, and Atlantis was a thing. But after Atlantis sinks, there's Namor the Submariner, who is from Atlantis, and even though Namor was a part of Marvel continuity before Kull, they had to then retcon how exactly those two different Atlantises ended up being the same thing, and how the different races of Atlanteans were actually connected in some way or another, and it ends up always just being a mess.
Yeah.
Or like this, what's it call it? Dinosaur World for like Moonborn Devil Dinosaur. At one point used to be in Earth's past, then ended up being a different dimension, and then it ended up being somewhere else. And they always kept changing that so they could keep writing stories with them, or like not wanting to step on another writer's toes.
Yeah, you can't have every single interpretation for every single event that takes place in religious texts and stuff like that to be all true at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, with it, yeah,
That's
or
what I
at the
mean
very
in the
least you
comic.
can't, or at the very least you can't have it all be true without like explaining like how it all coexists without having
And even
some
then,
kind
it
of.
would be extremely difficult anyway.
It'd be extremely
I mean,
difficult,
to
but
try.
would it be impossible? Like it would, like yeah, it would take some work for sure to think it through, but it's not. But it could be done.
It'll,
You
but
can't
then
really
it takes
do
like
it
one.
without modifying the religion itself either way.
Yeah.
Because if you're telling me, oh, the God of the Bible and the God of let's say, for example, let's say the pantheon, the pagan pantheon. Well, what does the Bible say about other gods, right? There's no other gods but me, and any other deity is not actually a deity, it's a demon in disguise. But then you see the behaviors of the gods in the Norse pantheon, and some of them are, just look at Balder, for example. Balder doesn't really fit the definition of the traditional biblical definition of a demon that is like pure evil. But at the same time, by virtue of being a created being, it can't be a god either. But that throws a wrench into what the Norse pagans believe. So there's really no way to make them coexist without diluting one or both religions at the same time, or like changing certain aspects of them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
That's
at
something
that point, it wouldn't be the religion; it would be a completely different thing.
that's something that God of War does, where it tries to rectify the fact that the Greek myths exist in the same continuity as something like the Norse myths. Granted, I think the Norse myths being a lot more human in nature, like acting in a lot more of a human manner, adds to them being sort of differently interpreted, despite how like the actual people viewed it. And again, the word is interpretation. Maybe it's not to the exact degree that we thought it was.
The other problem too is the fact that the existence of the other like god pantheons retconned the events of God, like what was implied at the end of God of War 1, where Kratos becomes the God of War, and how his like what happens with him. But also God of War 2 and 3 kind of retcon that as well. But someone asked back to Godzilla 98, do we think that a mutated marine iguana, which apparently he's not a mutated marine iguana, apparently he's a mutated green iguana, which also doesn't make sense since green iguanas were hunted to extinction on those islands. But an iguana from French Polynesia would choose to lay eggs in a more warmer climate like Cuba or Florida. If you're going for cities, why not a California one like San Francisco or LA? And then earlier he said, one problem with 90 is of all the places that Godzilla migrated to happens to be Manhattan. I know Totopolis says animals migrate to great lengths to breed, but why New York? The other thing too is that like animals migrate great miles because instinctually that is where like their species have like been endemic to at one point or another. So, or like there's a direct reason for them going there and then they become endemic. Where in the case of 98, the only real explanation they give is that it's an island with like an island, water on all sides, but like he can hide easily when Australia.
Which in that case, again, why not something like Hawaii?
Hawaii, or
Yeah,
Australia,
exactly.
Hawaii.
or Japan.
That's fair.
Yeah, why not just do
or
that?
Thailand.
Yeah.
Thailand, Taiwan,
not
Japan.
not Taiwan, not Thailand or Taiwan. The Philippines.
Taiwan.
The
You said
Philippines.
Taiwan.
Yeah, you said the Philippines.
Yeah.
Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, anywhere around there.
Yeah, or like if we're gonna cross over into the Atlantic, Jamaica, Cuba. Yeah.
Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama, Key Largo, Montego.
Baby, why don't
With
we go back to
with
Kokomo?
regards to the to the what was it? The Zilla 04 and the Godzilla 98 designs. I would say with that, the only thing I would agree with is they're the same design as far as like Son of Godzilla and like King Goji are the same design.
Well, I would say that King Goji isn't, the Son of Godzilla design isn't trying to be the same suit and is limited by the effects and like the technology that they have. So I would say that's also different too, because if hypothetically they were like, oh, we tried to recreate the 54 design for Son of Godzilla, but we were unable to, so we scanned something else. Whereas with Zilla, using the technology that they had at their disposal, they tried to emulate the 98 design, but obviously, due to time and budget, they aren't able to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I'd say it's somewhat fair, but like still, like they're clearly two different designs of something.
Well, they're two
And-
different designs, not by a metric of that trying to be what they were done. Because hypothetically, would they be the same design if the Final Wars team had the same technology and the same time and the same budget that the TriStar team had? Would they then be the same? Would they be different designs?
I think there would have been ways to get a better thing to scan than a toy that has inaccuracies in and of itself.
Well, then wouldn't the toys also not be accurate Godzillas then either? Because then we can't
Well,
really
sure.
say that those designs are Godzilla either, even though they're called Godzilla on their boxes. Because if the
I would
argument
say
is
it's
that
like a different thing.
but then they're not Godzillas then.
Their Godzilla is just inaccurate though,
So then
versus something else is being called
well, then Zilla,
something
which
else.
is literally again, if we're gonna pull up the actually also thinking of which, there is the Godzilla Generations 98, which has the Godzilla design there, but that's also not accurate either. So I guess we can't really call that the 98 design either, because that's also very inaccurate.
Godzilla X Zilla Generations.
Yeah.
Do not. No.
I would
rebuke
play
that.
that.
Because
Unironically,
proportionally,
I would play that. I would play that. If it gives us a big budget Godzilla game again, I would play that.
wait, do what?
Godzilla X Zilla Generations. If it gives us a big budget Godzilla game again, I would play that.
Or just Godzilla X Godzilla, or Godzilla Generations, where you just get a new Godzilla Generations with Legendary Godzilla, which is essentially what the PS4 game is, unfortunately.
Of course you would.
But also,
Of course you would buy that.
excluding this, we literally see when given the opportunity and the same budget between versions, we have the example of the spiral design, which is the same model, but just called Godzilla for specifically Japanese audiences, and Zilla licensed for everywhere else. And that's literally what Spiral
Yeah.
states.
So
So
because that brings it back to the licensing thing. Because I would say, like for that situation specifically, it was a case of they just licensed Zilla and they chose to do an accurate version of the Godzilla 98. But Zilla 04 is specifically its own design. And whenever you see Zilla 04 specifically, they always adhere to how he looked in that design, whether it be a figure or video game appearance. It's always the 04 appearance and design.
but not in this case here, or in this case here, not to mention the fact that if the argument is that licensing is the only reason why they can't do a Godzilla 98 in America, then that would posit that, like they said here with Tomiyama saying that they're the same creature and it's the same likeness, then that still just comes back to the point that it's the same design.
Sure, but same likeness, and like I said, the same as like King Goji and Son of being the same design.
Well, they're the same character, not the same
Like
design.
Sure, but like in this case, they're also not the same characters though.
Well, they're the same. No, they are the same character. It's literally Showa Godzilla, but it's a different design for those characters.
No, I mean like 98 and Zilla.
Well, in 90 and Zilla's case, they literally refer to them as the same design and the same character. Where they literally, if you're saying character, if outside of a trademark, where a trademark is literally just the lawful, essentially stamp that says you can lawfully produce this material, there is essentially no difference between the characters. Whereas in the case of the Showa Godzilla designs, the point is explicitly saying that they are different designs. It's supposed to be different designs to the same character. Whereas with Zilla and Godzilla 98, they will objectively usually say that, yeah, they are essentially the same character and same design.
I would say like it's a case by case basis with that, since like Zilla 04 has its own design, which is
Except in cases
replicated
when
whenever
it's
you
not.
see. Yeah, but Zilla itself, I guess. Yeah, because when you
But
do Zilla in a different incarnation of that one.
but what do you mean a different incarnation than that one? Because
Well,
even actually, if we
like
also
the difference between Zilla 04 and IDW Zilla,
actually
they're
that's
different incarnations of each other,
Matt Frank,
of the Zilla character.
Godzilla 98. Well, even then, if we're gonna look at Matt Frank's work on Zilla versus Godzilla series, they essentially look the same with like little to no difference. So if the argument is also that case, then we see that stylistically it's down to the art, and in the case of the art, we see similarities there.
Well, my only argument is that Zilla is its own design versus another Zilla.
But that's also
even...
well. Then that changes to there is the Zilla, the 98 Zilla design, which is shared with the 04 design, and the only time the 04 design changes if they're trying to make it accurate to the CG model, which is only a product of the budget and the time, whereas the intent is for them to be the same design. And when given the opportunity to make the design synonymous, they are synonymous. Because also, there's the original Bandai Heisei Godzilla design, which doesn't match any of the suits. And it's only recently that we've gotten new Bandais that actually match certain suits. But we would still call that original Bandai Heisei Godzilla.
Sure.
So then, again, the point would still remain that the Zilla design is supposed to be shared synonymously between 98 and Zilla proper post 2004.
Yeah, I'd agree to that. Though I wouldn't agree to an argument saying that like the design, like if someone were to say like, oh, this design is like purely Zilla, I would disagree and just state that it's shared with like the Godzilla trademark and the Zilla trademark as characters.
Yeah, but then it would still kind of be accurate for someone to call the 98 design the Zilla 98 versus Zilla 04 IDW Zilla, since that's also something that what I had asked Aiken about was that, yeah, you could call them that, similar to how you call other monsters by like a large defining moniker, where like Death Ghidorah isn't technically a King Ghidorah, but we call it a Ghidorah. Or we also don't call the second show Mechagodzilla 2. We usually call Heisei Mechagodzilla 2. And in most recent incarnations or like appearances of the character, you say Mechagodzilla 2. And in our case, you say Super Mechagodzilla, even though it's still Heisei Mechagodzilla.
Would that mean that the Zillas are all just under the branch of like Godzilla?
Adjacently. But like, are they ever gonna like officially appear again as like US Godzilla? Probably not, since there's the legendary Godzillas, which then the question becomes whenever legendary's tenure ends up, will the legendary Godzillas be called like Godzilla USA or Godzilla USA 2 or something like that?
Well, I don't know, but like, well, then what would that situation be?
Probably it wouldn't be the same as 98, because since despite what blacks like to think, looking at you, Black.
I beg your pardon?
You heard me. Despite what some people think, the legendary films have been for the most part very well received. So probably they aren't going to get the same Zilla treatment. But it would be kind of funny if they just called the legendary Godzilla after the 10-year went up Zilla 2. And you just have Zilla 2 Godzilla. That probably won't happen.
It's not that I don't think that they're well received. I don't think they deserve to be well received, is what I think.
I know.
Yeah. Like I don't
Well, some of them do deserve to be well received. Some of them do deserve to be well received.
Kong Skull Island in 2014 more. I will strangle you.
I will send you Jesus.
You know, I actually y'all ever played Faith Chapter 3?
Faith?
No.
Yeah,
No.
the by Airdorf. So one of the endings for that game, if you fail, you get the end. Usually, when you die, you go the screen goes mortis, and Oregon plays, right? But if you play
Oh, I thought yeah, the unholy
yeah, so
the
if you get the
unholy
bad ending
trinity.
for Faith Chapter 3, you get an ending called Damnatio Memoriae, which is basically you get erased from existence by the devil. And Damnatio Memoriae is a Roman punishment that basically erases a human being from all of history, because they did something so horrendous in their life. That is the kind of punishment I think both GXK, GVK, and Adam Wingard deserve.
Erasure from history.
Yeah.
Also, I completely forgot that game was just called Faith. I always just associate with just Faith, the unholy trinity.
I think it's kind of stupid to just go after someone because they made a bad movie.
No, I'm not going after the person. I'm just going to pretend that Adam Wingard doesn't exist.
It's a meme.
It's a joke, but
It's a
kind
meme.
of. Half of it is a meme. All right, I'm not going to go after the person, but Adam Wingard should not be allowed to touch Godzilla ever again.
I mean, he's probably going to do his own original kaiju
Or
project
Death Note.
at some point.
He is going to do his own original kaiju project.
I
he?
think.
I thought he was
I
just
hope he
doing
does.
it.
Wait,
because at the very
no, that
least-
wasn't Wingard. That was the other guy, wasn't it? Because that was like the Behemoth series.
Oh
the
yeah,
Behemoth-
no, that was Spator. I was about
to say, I'm like, he's not. Wingard isn't doing.
Yeah,
anything
Wingard.
kaiju-related.
I know Wingard was doing something else, and that's why he couldn't do
Onslaught or
GBK
something like that.
GBK2.
Onslaught, yeah.
Yeah.
Adam.
Um,
Well, as long as he's
yeah.
not touching Legendary, then I'm all okay. He can do what he wants. Just don't touch my sacred cow.
Can he touch Gamera?
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
Absolutely
Honest
not.
to God,
Absolutely
no.
not.
Honest to God, his style kind of fits Gamera if you go through the show.
Guillermo del Toro or nothing.
Yeah, I probably said Del Toro.
Okay,
Del
you know
Toro
what?
would be my pick.
Fair. You know what? Fair.
Like Del Toro, I could definitely take. Gun's a little too silly for like. I think that like the problem is that if you got a Wingard or you got a or a Gun, you're gonna get a Gamera film that is trying to be like the later Showa films, and they're gonna feel too much like they're like, hey, Gamera's silly, right? We're super silly. Like it's gonna feel too self-referential for me to take to actually take it genuinely. Whereas with Del Toro, I think he understands the spirit of the character.
Yeah, fair. Del Toro would probably be
I
something
would
more along the
disagree
lines
so
of
much
Brave.
from what I've seen. I would just disagree.
Why?
From what I've seen, how he handles Godzilla, I don't think it's going to be silly because I don't think GVK or GXK are silly or goofy.
That is.
Well, they themselves consider it to be silly. So, like,
By silly, you mean thoughtless? I agree.
Oh no, they just call. Well, we can call it thoughtless, but they do see it as silly. So
silly.
Well,
we have to define the word silly first, because thoughtless. I wouldn't say it's thoughtless. I'd say it's anti-thought, which is a lot harsher, I think. But not in the sense that there isn't any thought, but the thought that is being had is bafflingly dumb, as versus saying that there's no thought at all.
What do you mean by thought? What do you mean by like the bafflingly dumb thought? Because if enjoying and having fun with a film is bafflingly dumb, then I question it. Then I question your line of thinking.
Oh no! I don't mean enjoying the film. I'm saying silly, as in. Okay, all right. I think I have to define my words. So. Yeah. They're silly, I think, is being used in two different ways at the same time. They're silly in tone, as in it's not taking itself seriously, it's having fun with its own concept. And then they're silly as in this is completely and utterly stupid. When I say when I say it's silly in tone, well, not tone. It's the movie is silly, and that's a problem. What I mean is, the movie is bad, is dumb because it's poorly written. That's a problem. Specifically referring to GVK, GXK, but in the tone, I could also say, the movie is silly. The movie is just silly, and the directors are saying that the movie's silly. Now, whenever you say, the film is thoughtless, I would disagree in the sense that it's not thoughtless, as in nobody was thinking about what they're doing. People were thinking about what they're doing, but the thought process itself was not very intelligent, is what I'm saying. Because just look at how GVK and GXK turned out plot wise.
Doing great.
No, okay.
I mean, I had the time of my
I
life
am
with that
working
movie,
on my
so-
GVK video, and it's currently. I thought it was 187 pages long. It turned out to be 178. Just for that comment, I'm adding 100 more pages. And it's going to be longer.
Don't, Rooney, before you do anything, just make sure you take breaks in between. Don't get writer's block.
It's like I'm 160. I have 160 sources for my 98
Yeah,
video.
you have no idea how much the power of anger and just sheer spite can just fuel you to write the biggest hit piece. Yeah, the biggest, largest hit piece on something as well, not inconsequential. I wouldn't say inconsequential, as something as ridiculous as GVK. You have no idea. You know the meme. Oh, I'm too angry to die. Yeah, I'm too angry to stop.
I'm too angry to stop, my guy.
Yeah. I am the Wingard Slayer. Cue the BFG division music.
I also love the fact that I literally just pulled up a video that we might just watch a clip of, and then the first thing I see in my shorts is a sensual Godzilla referring to 98, and I'm like, wonderful.
You got taste, Sim. That's
Ew,
what YouTube is saying.
No, literally, it's hearing everything y'all saying.
It knows what you want.
No, it does not.
See, because
you say YouTube has taste, but then
YouTube wants taste, and it provides me with slop.
I'm turning Zim into a 98 and enjoyer.
Hey, I'm gonna be honest with you, Vic. I don't hate I don't hate 98. I don't hate it. I actually enjoy it a lot more than I do GXK. Because at least and also just the entirety of the Monsterverse, because at least the movie's not trying to preach to me.
I myself
I have Black on quote saying 98 is the greatest Godzilla movie. Now I can.
I will not say that. I will not accept that.
Rudy
did say that.
Rudy, you missed.
That was CGF that said that.
You missed the use of the line.
What?
You could have stolen my quote.
Either way, Zim has done more 98 positive words in the last few years since I met him. So there you go.
I myself have mixed on the film, partially because I'm partially grateful for it because of what it led to, but also resentful of it because of what it could have been.
I'm not resentful. For me, it's one of those cases where like there was objectively a better story that was passed up on. It's unfortunate. I'm also not grateful necessarily for what came after, because hypothetically, if we're talking about what could have been, what might have been, there is a case that could be made that you could hypothetically get everything that happened exactly the same without 98. So for me, it's not one of those cases where it's like I should be grateful for 98 because I got -1. You probably could have gotten -1 or could have gotten a shin regardless of 98. What matters
and a lot
is
earlier too, I would posit.
By what came after, I mean a lot of the stuff that 98 led to, on a personal level, that's what made me a Godzilla fan. Something like the way the Monsterverse turned out, looking at 98 and saying, okay, yeah, let's not do that again. Let's try to steer more in line with what was previously there. That movie, to me, is what got me into Godzilla on a personal level, as well as films like GMK straight up existing.
Oh no, I see what you're saying. So you're basically saying that 98 is is the bad example. Like, don't do that. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't. Well, the problem too is that like hypothetically with GMK, given the fact that like 2000 did okay, Mega Gears did okay. Then with GMK, one of the big issues was that one, they were pushing it as fast as possible, and that's why we didn't get some of the more obscure monsters. Instead, we got Mothra and King Ghidorah. Not to mention the fact that as much as I do like GMK, the Heisei Gamera trilogy, because of its longer development time, allowed for it to have better Toku shots. There could be an argument that could be raised that because 98 forced Toho to really push Godzilla back into the limelight to reestablish that image for the character, that we ended up getting a lesser GMK as a result. Not to mention the fact that once they got in the role of the Millennium series, they just kept doing what the Heisei series ended up doing, and that also resulted in a shorter era compared to the Heisei series. Not to mention the fact that the Heisei series overall only pushed as far as it did because of the gridlock of the American film. So, like, even before 98 come out, like the decisions that were being made and like the people being considered affected the Japanese Godzilla from that aspect as well.
I think what would have happened too if 98 was what Stan Winston wanted, or like what we expected from it, at least from using the Stan Winston design and the story, the old story with the Griffin, because I think that story could have been really, really well done. If we had that and they decided to make a franchise out of that and the films were good, which it's unlikely, but if the films were good, then we wouldn't even need a Monsterverse to begin with, and that would all pressure Japan. If they felt pressured, that would pressure Japan to say, oh, okay, we got the Americans are actually doing pretty good, we got to step up our game.
Had
the
original plan gone through, assuming best case scenario, I do think Japan would have probably stuck with the original idea, because the original idea was to not make any more Japanese Godzilla films until 2004. But
that was the original idea, but also they kind of were considering not doing anything for a while until 2014 came out, and then they decided on Shin. But the interesting thing is that 2014 resulted in the creation of Shin. Even like when 98 was coming out, there was a interview when like a lot of the other suit actors were alive, and I think it was either Nakajima or Fukuda had mentioned that if 98 was successful and there's a franchise made out of it, he would want to see almost a rivalry, like a friendly rivalry between Japan and the United States, trying to one up each other and make the better Godzilla films. And considering what the Monsterverse did and it being more in line with the original concept, I think if we're just looking at what we objectively have evidence-wise, that original concept probably would have resulted in more American Godzilla stuff coming out, a more satiated fan base, and probably a lot of stuff we were getting now have coming out earlier. Yeah. Because, like, for example, -1 probably wouldn't have come out earlier because Yamazaki had even stated that at the time Japan's VFX weren't really up to the snuff that he wanted. So probably we wouldn't have gotten something like -1 until now, but we probably would have gotten more Godzilla films, or maybe the envelope might have been pushed earlier as a result of the US and Japan being like more back and forth between their Godzilla films.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I think essentially we would have what we have now a little earlier with a bit more of a reach.
What do you mean by reach?
To the audience. Like a reach to the audience, like more people, more general audiences, like being in the know outside of being like not too big of a niche.
Yeah, because I mean, like, literally at this point, I can name like 6 to 7 stores within walking distance of me that sell Godzilla products at this point now. So I think that like we probably would have gotten that kind of public perception when it comes to Godzilla much earlier.
Just imagine all the merchandise. Secondly, just how much more culturally relevant Godzilla would be if we got the original plans for 98, as well as just an excellent trilogy of movies of Godzilla movies that people would remember for years to come, or maybe just like a continuous series of excellent movies. Let's say up until like them ending around the same time as, I don't know, the Raimi movies came out, right? They would be very fondly remembered. I think they would be a lot more fondly remembered and a lot more culturally relevant and a lot more respected. Key word here, respected, than a lot of the Godzilla movies that come out in recent history. I think
another thing too is the fact that since Stan Winston's team would have been working on a lot of this, and like ILM as well, it would be more, oh, hey, there's a Godzilla movie being made by the same people who did Jurassic Park and did the work on Star Wars later on down the line, instead of there's a Godzilla movie that came out. It's trying to riff on Jurassic Park by trying to make Godzilla more like those dinosaurs.
Yeah, and speaking of Jurassic Park, I noticed the soundtrack. The people compare 98 to Jurassic Park because there definitely were a lot of influences. But one of the things that I don't see a whole lot of people talking about is how the soundtrack sounds a lot like John Williams's OST for Jurassic Park. Like there were some scenes where there something horrific was happening, and you just hear this wondrous music, like the kind of music that you would hear when you're staring up at a dinosaur and you're like, wow, it's a real life dinosaur, instead of just Godzilla just killed a bunch of people. Like it's very
Killed a bunch of
non-fitting.
people, just leveled a building.
And it's like another thing too. Even though they're in two different locations, a lot of like the VFX for 98 do mimic the Bull T-Rex from the Lost World, because you have in the Lost World a nighttime attack sequence with almost a very glossy, almost just rained out type of environment for it. And the same thing applies for Godzilla 98, obviously. Or you have other scenes that are similar to like the raptor head bop for the door.
Just the raptors being there in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say it's fair. It's a fair thing to say.
Yeah,
I think 98's daytime CGI is better than Lost World's daytime CGI.
I'd say it's better than GXK's daytime CGI.
I would say Lost World's daytime CGI is better than GXK's 98. I would say the only reason why they're better is because you're also dealing with rainy daytime sequences as well, and as a result, it's able to blend in more.
You're saying you're saying
a whole lot better than I remember.
Hold on, you're saying that 98's daytime CGI is better than Lost World's
daytime CGI because you're dealing with more. I'd say more consistent. Maybe not better, but more consistent, definitely. Because
maybe
like consistent does mean better.
Maybe depending
on who you ask.
I don't know. Like Lost World.
Like if you would ask me that, like dates, like Lost World's best daytime CGI, like a certain sequence or a certain shot versus 98's best daytime CGI, I'd have to look at them side by side. But at least from off the top of my head right now, I'd probably say that due to 98 being rainy essentially all the time that Godzilla is on screen, it allows for more consistency, which I could definitely say it makes sense for someone to call it better. And I could be very much persuaded to that. But I'd probably have to watch both movies again. As I watched 98 recently.
I like the use of the rain in the movie as well. That really helps with the sense of scale, because usually when you want to portray a giant creature, usually the best way to go about it is to show something smaller than it next to it or near it. There's some shots, for example, in King of the Monsters that I really like. The shots, not the color grading, where you see little birds flying through Godzilla's face, or a bunch of debris flying through his face, and then you get the sense, oh, this thing is huge. And I think the rain really helps us do that as well.
Yeah.
I would also say, like in general, I think it was handled really well in 98. Just on like videos I've seen where they say like the black levels for that scene were done really well.
And
like,
one thing I don't like about his model is that they modeled the vagina there.
Yeah.
Well, it's also really funny
why,
the fact,
like, dude.
It's also funny when that got leaked out about Godzilla laying eggs, and what's it called? Devlin had to come on and be like, Godzilla is not a she. Doesn't go prancing around New York. You've heard it on the internet. Don't believe it, when that literally ended up being the case.
Pregnant man emoji.
Yeah, which is funny because like everyone I've talked to who worked on 98 always referred to it as a she. Like I think even the suits had nicknames like Mama Suit and stuff like that.
But then there's also Fred.
I am not calling that thing like, Fred.
Behold, the great and mighty Fred.
It's even
no, but why is it called Fred?
Too. You'd have to ask Brayden about that.
The VFX team. That's what the effects team just called him, and it's in the movie too.
Is it really?
Yeah.
What?
If you look at the monitor when they have, I believe it's a submarine chase. On the monitor, they have like Godzilla as a target, and it's codenamed Fred.
Fred.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Can
So
we
then,
just
yeah,
call
liter-
Zilla Fred from now on so we can end the debates about whether or not Zilla would
Some
like?
people still call him Gino.
Fredzilla.
Fred.
Gino, yeah, Godzilla in name only, the acronym. I like Gino.
Gino. I like. I've
'cause
heard,
it-
I've heard
'cause
it's
it runs
Gino.
off it looks like
But it also
Dino and
to me just
Dino.
come-
You know.
It also to me just comes across as at points misapplied. Not in Zilla's case. Not in Zilla's case. There are hey boy. I think it's apt to an extent. I think
it's funny that the guy who painted Godzilla 98's name is Gino.
Really?
That's yeah, and I think if I recall correctly, the guy who ended up coining the term Gino didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I got to talk to him. He's a nice guy. The painter for Godzilla 98.
I love what's F29 says. Braden can tell you about black levels.
Brayden is off the grid most of the time.
Yeah.
And
then I hope we get a Dark Universe reboot with an actual good movie one day. Hey, if you want
Nosferatu.
to hear about Dark Universe reboots, go check out Sea Monsters live stream about it, where I talked about my Dark Universe pitch.
Nosferatu.
I still don't know how to feel about that one, but go watch it.
And then let's see. Yeah, and I'm still mad at you, Sea Monster. You didn't tell me Nosferatu was out.
Oh, well,
No one
I
told me that it was out last week, and that ended up not being the case.
It came out on Christmas Day.
It did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why. Literally, I was like, I'm not going to be able to see it because I'm going to be up out of state for Christmas. Okay, so it did come out that week. They didn't lie to me. I'm sorry to that person. They know who they are.
Critics got like an advanced premiere of it. You know, that's why Jeremy Johns was able to post his review for it 3 weeks before it came out nationwide. But there you go.
Yo, do you want me to tag
more about different
Adam,
media other than Godzilla?
What's it called? See, do you want me to tag Adam Does Movies in the to your stream?
No, let him find out for himself.
No, because he's never gonna find it because it never pops out his feed because he was so surprised when people did responses to him. So I'm like, yo,
please do. Someone please do.
Oh no. Oh boy. I actually I watched that video, see.
Oh, actually, no, wait.
Adam, I question your experience with this kind of thing.
So, actually, what I was thinking was that we can watch the one little bit from Adam Does Movies where he did the live stream where he ended up talking about me. And after that, do y'all want to we can end off the stream because we hit 2 hours, but we can what's it called?
Rookie numbers.
I know, dude. Literally, I still need to beat 7 hours is the stream I need to beat. I might do that around like my birthday. That might be what I do is do a super long live stream. But
I still need to
go over.
I still need a stream of mine to eclipse my first one, which was 6 hours and 18 minutes. I need to make that happen one of these days, one day.
See, you know exactly what stream is going to be doing that.
No, I just realized. I wish I should have just subscribed to him. He apparently did a end of the year wrap up on his channel with Hack the Movies, who also was really mad about me calling him a meat writer in my comment section.
Oh yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm actually also going to be like highlighting like in my stream of his Nosferatu thing. We're also going to be like going over the bit where he's talking about Nosferatu, you know, with Hack the Movies, and he makes like some offhand comment about it's like this is going to be my Godzilla -1, isn't it?
Oh, Hack the Movies doesn't like it.
No. Adam Does Movies was on that wrap-up stream with Hack the Movies.
Oh, but no, the thing is, I'm looking at it. It's on his channel, so that's why I was confused.
Okay, well, the stream is on both Hacked movies and Adam Does Movies. They just both upload at the same time.
Okay, gotcha.
It's the same stream.
Gotcha. Okay. But I think you also mentioned something. What's it called, Vic?
Yeah. Well, I wanted you to go over me the thing about the or explain to me the legal mumbo jumbo about like Japan only having Godzilla 98 or something.
Oh, essentially that like how it works to the best of my knowledge and to the best of it being defined to me is that Japanese, like there's a risk of TriStar being able to take cuts out of licensed products with their Godzilla design because it has to do with the distribution of the film rights. So in most cases, Toho's more likely to license Zilla outside of the US, where everything Godzilla 98 related that's licensed is usually just Japan exclusive stuff, or very rarely comes out of the US, or it's done through Japanese companies specifically. Whereas I know Spiral is not a Japanese company. So I think in Bandai's case, since it's Japanese, they're able to do the 98 figure like that. But essentially that because the characters have the same character likeness, they license how they please based on like what they fear from TriStar and the like.
So like, will a company in Japan not have to like give any shares to TriStar in this case, or Sony?
I assume that they don't have to do like shares, royalties, or like whatever the proper term is, because Japan was exclusively Toho's domain.
Right, so it would just be a matter of like if a company like say if you're like a game developer and you want to have like the Godzilla 98 like as Godzilla, it would just be a matter of like Toho like bringing it up to Sony.
Actually, in that case, that may be something you'd have to bring, because you'd also have to deal with the distribution outside of Japan, so that it wouldn't be as simple as just talking to Toho. Because if you're talking about a video game or a comic, it's going to be distributed outside of where Toho has exclusive rights.
Yeah.
Because hypothetically, let's say, we'll just use Zogura as an example. If I gave you the license to Zogura and we split up those distribution rights, and you had sole dominion in, let's just put you in Mexico just for the sake of it, just to make Braden and Black Rooney happy. If you had
I'm not Mexican.
I know, but it's funny regardless.
Yeah.
But if you had sole distribution and you had like essentially all your rights are exclusive to Mexico, for like how you distributed and what your rights were, and your company was based all there, then like if something from like a Zogura related product was then going to Mexico, then you'd have to deal with all of the legal ramifications that would be cited in that license agreement from back then when I originally licensed out the character to you.
But like,
Zim,
Yes.
question. When are we gonna talk about the plot?
The plot?
Of
Dave,
98?
we can talk about the plot. Mostly it was just about the character rights. That was the big thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see,
yeah,
because
but if you want to talk about how great it is, I'll allow it.
I'll allow it. Whose stream is this? Asking for permission. The audacity.
I'm basically Zim's co-host at this point, you know. So just saying.
Co-host, not main host.
At this point, I'm just waiting for the timestamp for when Adam Does Movies mentioned like the meat riding and all that.
Yeah, because like this whole time, I don't know anything about the legal stuff of '98. I just care mostly about the plot. This whole time, I've just been watching Max Steel clips.
Essentially, Godzilla 98. Japan loves Godzilla 98, so only they can do Godzilla 98.
Yes,
No.
in Minecraft World, I said Max Steel.
You mentioned Max Steel?
Yes, I love Max Steel.
I love Max Steel too. It, but yeah, it's good.
Oh, so what's it called? Literally, I'm gonna. It's just a small bit. I really just want to post this on my channel here for the Adam, just to do the Adam Does Movies small clip, because it's so funny that like I literally thought nothing of it when I replied to his comments, and then that becomes a conversation topic in their later stream. So
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
there's a streamception for a second there, but
Here, hold on. What's the time
Oh,
span?
this guy.
Timestamp for this? Let me
The
see.
times. This is that you want to start at this timestamp right here. So hour 33 minutes and 5 seconds.
I
So
forgot
Hour
about this guy.
33.5. Okay, what stream was it? Just so
the
which is
Golden
it?
Globes 2025 nominees plus biggest snubs live.
Okay, Golden Globes 2025. Okay, all right. I don't know what to look for then. All right, thank you. All right, just in case like I have anyone on my upcoming stream that doesn't know about this clip, we'll just reference it. All right, go ahead.
Okay, we're just gonna let it play all the way through because I don't have to worry about getting canceled or copyright strikes.
Yeah, because you and Adam have a very good relationship.
I will say, like I said, I wanted to get Godzilla up and running. Once I get the Twitch up and running, I might test it out by watching that guy's 3-hour video complaining about you. I might do that on the Godzilla channel.
It's not even a video; it's a live stream.
That was amazing.
I'm a meat rider. Did you know that? I ride your meat.
Weird.
Because I left a comment. That's what he referred to me as. I'm like, I never heard meat.
Oh, where are you going with this? This is awesome.
Yeah, I didn't watch the video. I just went in and went, Adam rules. And he's like, yeah, you meat ride him. We saw in the clips. I'm like, oh, I'm in the video. Now I have to
Tony, you have no idea. Like, I got through maybe a third. If you don't know, stream on Thanksgiving, I brought this up on a couple streams ago. A gentleman did a compilation of all of my Godzilla -1, not only reviews, but also just when I randomly would talk about Godzilla -1 on a live stream like this in passing. When it would get brought up for like 10 minutes. And like one of them was with you, Tony, you were on. Like he found I don't even know how he did it.
I'm gonna pause it just for this one part here. The thing is that like the only reason why I was able to find it was because actually I can address this to you directly, Adam. The reason I was able to find it was because you search optimize all your content pretty well, which is why you have all your subs. But like, if you're going to talk about Godzilla to some degree or another, then you put Godzilla in the thumbnail or you mentioned it in the title. So as a result, it wasn't too hard for me to find all of the stuff related to Godzilla if you put Godzilla's design in your thumbnail or mention it in the title. Not to mention, I think some of the live stream, some of them were live streams, some of them were videos, directly didn't have anything to do with Godzilla, but were more to illustrate a point I had about the content. But
yeah, I don't know about you, Adam, but as far as I'm concerned, Zim was doing, as one may say, take pride in his work. That's what he was doing.
Yeah, what did you say that Zim, what did you say that prompted that response? That because he says you called him a meat rider, but what did you say?
I'll show you. I'll show the comment because I'm not afraid of doing that. So we'll show that in just a second.
I don't even know how he did it, but he did a 3.5-hour live stream on Thanksgiving about how much I suck and how wrong I am about Godzilla. And listen, I like making fun of myself, but 3.5 hours was pretty brutal to listen to yourself get dunked on.
I'll listen to it though.
To be fair, the hour I listened to in my car, he was mostly making just decent counterpoints and just playing my audio in its entirety at double speed, which annoys the fuck out of me. And then he would kind of pick stuff apart. He wasn't really doing a lot of ad hominem attacks or anything.
Okay.
So that was fine. But then he did go to another YouTuber who did a video on me on a different day that I also didn't know about, and that guy was pissed. He's like, "This guy's a fucking idiot." Blah blah blah.
I gotta buy the Never Forget shirt, and I'm just gonna watch that live stream in the Godzilla -1 Never Forget shirt.
I'm like, what? Where is this universe? I didn't see any of these YouTube videos of guys just pissed at me about Godzilla -1. It's wild where you can fall into the the YouTube tunnels.
Yeah.
But no, it was okay. I got an hour in, so
I'm excited for it.
You're in it. You are in it at some point. Your feature.
I can't wait. You know what, Adam? I'm gonna say it. That guy, his channel, it's the worst Godzilla channel.
Aww.
Hey, I'm right here.
And because you're a meat rider, you have to say that. So I appreciate it.
I'm literally standing right here.
Worse, but I'm not on YouTube,
Right.
so I can't technically be the worst on YouTube.
So
And on that note,
yeah, let's go. Go to that live.
Go get my goat.
Like he said, he said I wasn't like he followed on a rabbit hole. That's why I said, see, you're gonna have to probably tag him so he actually finds it. But Druck. So yeah, actually, yeah. So he got further in because like Gojin's video was at an hour 30, so he got further in than he even said he did. But yeah, so he said Adam rules. 6 likes, and I said sounds like meat writing, which you saw in the live stream. You do a bit of literally. That's as well as I just realized. No, actually no. I already realized this because he said this. I say this in response, and I'm like, okay, cool. I meant nothing of it. No, and then he sends another comment 2 weeks later. Like, I can tell you this, after this comment a month ago, I wasn't even expecting him to reply, but then he's like, oh, YouTube deleted my Godzilla channel. The audio version is on all the big feeds, and the video catalog is on Rumble. Look up Godzilla versus the Pod Monster. And then I found it, and I was specifically because I'm working on the Godzilla Raids Again video, and this was me being generous to some of the things they got wrong in their Podzilla stream video that they did. And like, that's me trying not to go super hard on it. But like, this one I also find funny too, because this guy, doesn't he like essentially like do exactly what Adam Does Movies does with how he like optimized his thumbnails and everything? It almost looks like a mini Adam. Because like there's these ones here that are like, okay, they're like average YouTube, but then like right as you get here, they just look very much like Adam's thumbnails. And then here they get even more like Adam's thumbnails because he has his face in them. But I'll read out his comment because I also saw him in one of the live streams, and he said, watch this out of morbid curiosity as a fan of Adam. Well, I think you had some pretty good arguments, and you're clearly knowledgeable about the Godzilla franchise. Don't you think this is a tad excessive? Like, I can't imagine ever being so mad at a person. And again, I'm not mad. It's a matter of... C, do you want to repeat what you just said?
Taking pride in your work.
Thank you, C. At a person that I feel compelled to make an almost 4-hour video running through their entire video catalog. But again, not everything they do is bashing Godzilla -1, so it can't be their entire video catalog. To find every moment they spoke about a movie, I loved that they didn't. You had a few good points here and there, but the majority of this comes off as actually in video form. But here's the thing, it's like, you had a few good points. I can't deny you outright because Adam also doesn't deny me outright. But he's like, the majority of it comes off as, instead of based on the arguments that you've given, it's this. Which I gave like, actually, yeah, no, I realized I didn't even give him like a long drawn out comments. It's like, I'd rather take everything he said and take it at face value rather than look at a single video and make a rant. I also want someone who I don't agree with to explain why as much as they can, so my response is as best as it can. So essentially, I might have just put that wrong because I was being stupid that day, but essentially, I feel that it wouldn't be fair if I looked at one video that Adam did, which is essentially a nothing video in terms of its criticisms, and then try to make a bunch of assumptions, which is why I did the entire catalog, and Adam can't deny that, which he also did a bunch of his own, he did his own big response here, which people want to look at. And see, the other thing too is that like he says, I appreciate defending my clear joke about the kamikaze pilots. And again, like that was one of the weakest things that came out of that whole drama. And as a result, I'm like, I have to be even-handed with it. I'm not doing it because I hate him, and that should be very clear. But like, this is why I'm like, bro, sounds like meat writing. And at a certain point, I was like, I'm not going to call everyone who comes in a meat writer, but same person's like, Adam is great. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, like hack the movie saying Adam rules, and it's like, guys, come on, you're not helping yourselves.
Yeah, I say, hey, I saw Adam talking about this, and I had to check it out. And that's when I was like, oh, they were talking about this.
I had my own.
Oh, you had your own comment in there?
Yeah, it was the one where I discussed like my problem with the whole platoon logic, which he had at the start by calling us thin-skinned.
Mm-hmm. Oh, let's like real quick. I'm surprised they're bringing you up, Zim. Also, Tony Fact Me says a Godzilla 98 shrine in his fake VHS setup. That's not surprising.
What?
But actually, we'll have to do that for another stream. But hack the movies. Because again, I don't follow them, and I wasn't even expecting. No high. You don't get a high.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. This Tony guy, he worked with Screenway Media with Cinemassacre.
No, that I'm aware of. That I have heard.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just want to make sure in case anybody didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure yet.
Right now.
I should probably literally next time I should just follow both of them and then make sure my notifications are set up so the moment they do a live stream I can jump in and be like, hey, sup meat writer.
Isn't this the guy that cried because of a movie? There was something he didn't like and he started crying.
No, not the same, different guy.
Oh,
yeah, I found my comment. It's the I'll send it to you in DMs real fast.
Yeah. Oh, I might just have to allow it into the what's it called? I might just have to allow it in my end.
Yep.
But yeah, so the other thing I wanted to talk about was the despot of Antrim. How do you ever say it? He did a thing on Antrim. He did a thing about GXK.
Oh yeah, I made a
Omniviewer responded to.
Yeah,
and I'm like, do y'all want to talk about this?
Yeah, I would like to talk about that first because I made that video stream. Oh, sorry, I made that stream response. So I made a stream responding to Omniviewer. You can watch that because a lot of the things that he was saying, Omniviewer kind of confused me a bit. I try to give him like the absolute benefit of the doubt because he has been here before and he has made several good points in the past. However, that response in particular, I think there could have been better ways to respond to what Antrim said. But even then, I don't completely disagree with what Antrim said either about GXK.
Yeah, like we're gonna play through it and then we can give our thoughts here.
Yeah.
So
Adam Webb was the second dumbest movie of 2024. The dumbest is number 9 on our list, Godzilla X Kong. The movie is an excuse to slam CGI action figures together, punctuated by scenes of one-dimensional humans following a series of clues conveniently put in place for them by the script, until they arrive at the lost land of Utopia, where the girl who is the key to everything does some bullshit, I can't remember what, and activates some anti-gravity pyramids. Then the evil ape with the scar is defeated in a battle for the fate of mankind. Godzilla X Kong features a civilization of noble savages who dress like pre-Columbian Native American nomads, but were able to build giant pyramids and can create anti-gravity fields. However, they didn't activate these pyramids because the script told them that they had to wait for the girl who is the key to everything to show up and do some bullshit. In one scene, Angry White Man is fuming that he isn't in charge, so the script puts him in his place by having a giant plant eat him. In response to seeing a man swallowed whole by a plant, a comic relief character says some variation of, well, that just happened. He was just eating by a tree. Then he and non-threatening male character Hug forget that they are walking through a jungle infested with giant man-eating plants and continue on to wherever the script told them to go next. The humans are led by generic science genius lady and rounded out by Black Jack Black. He was eaten by a tree. I don't want to die like that. And non-threatening pussyish male character. I love class grief, man. Come here. According to the Google search I just performed, the smallest known particle of matter is a quark. I did not give a single quark of a fuck about any character in Godzilla X Kong. I didn't care about the CGI action figures that moved around on screen. I didn't care about the one-dimensional walking tropes this movie would have me believe are human characters. None of the nominal characters have a dramatic arc. At the end of this slog, Black Jack Black is still a mousy bumbler. Non-threatening male character still barely exists. The CGI action figures haven't changed any. And Mary Sue the Elder and her stepdaughter, Mary Sue the Younger, are still morally flawless Mary Sues. Probably my favorite YouTube drama this year was seeing a horde of brainless Godzilla X Kong fans attack Movie Cynic for calling this stupid fucking movie fucking stupid. In response to the attack on Movie Cynic, Little Platoon did a review of Godzilla X Kong, decimating it over the course of an hour and a half. A common theme in the comments attacking Cynic's take was that, yeah, the movie was fun though, which is a lazy catch-all defense that can be resorted to in response to any criticism. The characters are vapid, insufferable walking tropes. Yeah, but it's fun though. The monsters have been reduced to product placements with no character development, no thematic meaning, and no personality. Yeah, but it's fun though. The story structure has no organic flow. It's just this happens, then this happens, then this happens, a sequence of non-sequiturs built around dumb set-piece monster battles. Yeah, but it's fun though. The amount of plot holes and plot contrivances that need to occur in order to get the girl who is the key to everything to the noble savages is an insult to the viewer's intelligence. Yeah, but it's fun though. The world building is trash. Rome isn't evacuated after a radioactive monster takes up residence there. The noble savages would have conquered the Hollow Earth and invaded the surface long ago if they were so advanced that they had anti-gravity technology, and there is no explanation at all for how they are able to communicate telepathically. Yeah, but it's fun though. The male characters are emasculated pansies, a histrionic crying damsel damsel and a sexless Aussie whose main goal in every interaction seems to be to self-deprecate in a pathetic imitation of Marvel humor. The one man who dares attempt to assert himself is immediately punished with death. This is just typical Hollywood, emasculating male characters to make the women look more formidable by comparison. Look, the monster suplexed the other monster. Did you see the part where the monster suplexed the monster? So instead of only criticizing around Godzilla X Kong's main point of defense, that it was fun, I will attack that defense head on. Godzilla X Kong isn't fun. I was bored out of my mind almost the entire runtime. I can't even remember if I finished watching the movie. Now, you are allowed to like Godzilla X Kong ironically. I did laugh out loud at the sight of a giant CGI ape holding a battle axe aloft while riding a rhinoceros or whatever it was he was riding. I get it. The movie is popcorn spectacle. It's unapologetically dumb fun, mindless, nominal entertainment, and a harmless good time. But here's the thing. Godzilla X Kong isn't fun, or entertaining, or in any way a good time. It's dull, boring, and awful in almost every way a movie can be. Terrible dialogue, one-dimensional characters, awful CGI, lazy character and set design, indifferent production design, bad acting, shitty recycled Marvel humor, bad pacing, constant exposition dumps to explain to the viewer events that occurred 30 minutes ago in-world, a non-sequitur story structure, and a script fabricated almost entirely from dead tropes. Here's just a handful of the tropes that Godzilla X Kong relies on. The genius female scientist, the annoying Jar Jar Binks comic relief character, the rebel pilot who has a problem with authority, angry white man gets put in his place, the child who turns out to be the chosen one, a central character unexpectedly turns out to be the key which unlocks victory over the evildoers. This is a trope we will see repeated in another movie later in the video. Self-deprecating Marvel humor. Well, that just happened. Emasculated male characters, brave stoic female characters, noble savages who live in harmony with nature. Two monsters start out as enemies and ultimately team up to fight a larger threat. The world will end if the bad guy wins. A child character is forbidden from going on the adventure, but through perseverance, she invites herself along. This exact same trope appeared in Meg 2: The Trench, but at least in that movie, Jason Statham had the good sense to order the sub to turn around and head back. In Godzilla X Kong, the adults all agree that the best thing to do is bring the child with them on this life-threatening trip into the Hollow Earth, a place filled with man-eating plants and giant wild beasts. Meg 2: The Trench was nominated for a Razzie, and it's better written than Godzilla X Kong. Some critics who wanted to emphasize just how bad Godzilla X Kong is compared it to Godzilla -1. While a legitimate comparison, this is unnecessary. I don't need a bottle of perfume placed next to a steaming pile of dog shit laid out on a hot tarmac on a scorching summer's day to identify the latter as offensive to the senses. The zombified morons that praised Godzilla X Kong are trolls, feeding from the trough of troll feed that is periodically filled by the Hollywood sludge pipe, which only encourages Hollywood to provide more of the same sludge in future. Only next time it will be a little more watered down. I don't hate Godzilla X Kong because it's dumb. I like dumb movies if they're entertaining. Meg 2: The Trench is the intellectual equivalent of Brie Larson's recent cry for help haircut that she got to celebrate her 55th birthday, and Meg 2 is entertaining. I hate Godzilla X Kong because it promises dumb fun and instead delivers near total tedium. However, as bad as the movie is, it can be enjoyed on a superficial level if you fast forward past the human scenes and just play the monster battles. They're shit, but mildly amusing shit. Unfortunately, we will be sticking with the ape theme for this next movie.
Okay, there we go.
Before we begin tearing this thing apart, I just want to ask one question. And Despot, if you're for some godforsaken reason watching this,
bro,
he cut off. I have a feeling what he was gonna say. I have a feeling.
So, like, the one thing I'll say is that in the case of the problem with anything like these something of all time or something of this year is the fact that like it automatically relies on you having watched a review that they've done in the past or someone else's review to understand what it is they're saying. But like if he's saying like bad production design, things like that, I don't really know what he's referring to unless it's the specific scene on screen. And the only reason why I can kind of understand some of his points is because I share some of them. But outside of that, like, I'm not sure how he gets to the conclusions that he does.
I'm just gonna. I think. Okay, so I accidentally muted my mic. Let me just finish what I was saying.
That's so funny.
Why the fuck do you think tropes are a thing?
They're what?
Why the fuck do you think tropes are a thing? Because they work. Because they are because tropes are a consistent and easy way of going for a story that actually do work. Now, yes, execution depends on what you're going for, but that doesn't deny the fact that a film being tropey doesn't automatically make it bad.
Yeah, it's all just a matter how the tropes are used.
Half of his criticisms, quote unquote, were mostly subjective tastes. Calling boring and fun does not actually. Boring and fun usually depends on what a person seeks when going for a movie.
Yeah, I would also like to
I'd say true, but like we do have to admit that like a large contingent of people in the fan base when this movie came out, did essentially just argue that the film was fun and that's why it's good. And I'd say that that's a problem with his points as well, by saying, oh, it's boring, then explain why it's boring. Don't just give me like a few bullet points as to why it's boring. Same reason for someone asking me, oh, it's fun, therefore I like it.
Yeah, unfortunately, unfortunately, he is referring to like a Sorry if I interrupted anyone, but he's not really referring to someone like, let's just say like yours truly as an example, where it's like I would be like, did I have fun with GXK? Yes. Am I still gonna make a video where I kind of break down like the poor writing in that and how it could have been improved? Absolutely, because that's because how good or bad a movie is and how much fun you have with it are two different conversations. But yeah, There was still unfortunately a contingent of people that when GXK came out, they kind of excuse me, they stuck with that argument of it was fun, it's good because I had fun with it, or it's fun because it's good, or so on and so on.
Exactly. Personal subjectivity is very different from the actual quality of a movie. And this leads me to my third problem with this thing. Why the hell are you insulting the people who actually got enjoyment out of the movie when you didn't?
I would like to posit the fact that the reason why I think he says he found it boring was mainly as a response to the people that were claiming it was objectively fun, which is something that I point out in my stream, because a lot of the criticisms in favor of GXK, like at least the criticisms against the criticism of GXK, a lot of it was just people saying, no, it was good, it was fun, it like you will have fun, basically. People saying, oh, you didn't have fun, what do you mean you didn't have fun? You just hate fun, this and that. And I think Despot here was, although not making it explicitly clear, which I think is the problem, he's just saying that he's just part of the demographic that didn't found GXK to be fun. And I think that would confuse a lot of the fans that would respond to his and Platoon's criticisms in such a way. Like, what do you mean you didn't have fun? With like the giant monsters are fighting. How come you didn't have fun? And I think he said it himself. Like he was going to tackle that criticism head on. I don't think he was trying to make an objective statement. I think he was trying to counter a subjective point with another subjective point. And again, he should have made it explicit, which I think is the problem.
Unfortunately. The thing is,
he also shouldn't have resorted to straw manning and in a way insulting the people who actually did enjoy the film by portraying them in that stupid subjective light.
Yeah, unfortunately, Despot. Sorry.
One of the biggest crimes to me personally, and I think in general, that someone can make in media analysis is insulting the fan base. And this is a crime and this is a bad thing for two reasons. One, it just makes you look petty. It makes you look like you are insecure, that you don't actually trust a lot of your criticisms, and that you have to resort to bashing other people for enjoying this film because you didn't and because you want to have an echo chamber. And two, it is functionally irrelevant to the actual quality of the film or media that you are discussing. The fan base can affect your perception of it. I've had this multiple times. I've seen this multiple times with things like, say, Has Been Hotel. But I'm not going. But if I were to watch Has Been Hotel, I'm not going to take the fan base into regard when I'm critiquing something like it. That's what Despot of Antrim, I think, is trying to get at least from what I can gather with what's going on. And that's what rubbed me the wrong way. Well, that's one of three things that rubbed me the wrong way.
And another thing is, like, he didn't even make a GXK video before adding it to the top however many like worst of his picks of 2024. So he could have tried to like elaborate a little bit more, but maybe like the bits that he did, like about the tree, the man-eating tree, was like one example of that. But if he was gonna like have all these points, it would have. And if you didn't even do that video, you should have like at least like pulled like at least some example.
I think the other thing too, like, because right here, I can literally, it doesn't take me that hard to find people in both of the comment section of Platoon and Cynic's videos with people just being, oh, it was fun and action packed. It was peak fiction because of suplex.
Yes,
Not
fiction.
be taken
That
serious.
ambiguous word that doesn't mean anything.
Or what's
People
it called?
say it, I like saying it ironically. But really, like peak fiction, that is not a word that should be in anybody's vocabulary when referring, especially to the Monsterverse.
Mm-hmm.
I refer to it as peak fiction because why not?
I would refer to
But then
it.
what?
Again, like ironically,
what does peak fiction man mean then?
Peak fiction is like the top of all fiction, like the greatest piece of work that humanity could ever.
No, I know what you mean, Black. But I'm asking Minecraft in this case, since
like
you're saying
I tend to use it in general. I tend to use it in an ironic sense. When I say peak fiction, unironically I'm usually talking about things like Transformers 1, GMK, or the Gamera trilogy,
or Godzilla -1.
Yeah.
When I say peak
I
fiction,
feel the word is more sacred than that.
Mm-hmm.
I ride the line of being somewhat ironic, but also like still having some genuine seriousness to it. Like, for instance, Scar King using his whip to grab a building and swing it at Kong. I've always said from the start, from the first time I saw that scene, that is peak fiction to me, because it just adheres to my tastes and what I think fiction, or like the best of fiction, can be, as to where someone can have that idea and put it on paper and execute it.
Wait, hold on, because there's something that I do not understand about that. So when you say peak fiction, what is the definition you're using?
Like the greatest, okay, I can say the greatest, or just something that I think really exemplifies the imagination of someone and executing it and like just showing it,
Doesn't every single story ever do this?
Not really.
To some
I
extent.
mean,
like, because I would say, like, I almost always just unironically say something peak because it's fun to say that. But like, if you were to ask me like what I mean by peak, usually it's just better to say I think this is like from an objective standard a good so and so based on this criteria that's given. And I think that there are films that I would consider objectively good that if I was to compare them side by side, one would be vastly superior. But given the fact if I want to lay out my criteria for both and understand from the circumstances why this film is I consider to be as good as something else, that is where my logic goes in that. Because like I would say 54 and -1 are both on the same level as being good films, but I would say that -1 has better effects for the most part than 54. But I'd say given what 54 is doing for its time, what it contributes and the illusion that it creates in the environment that it was allowed to, it is good. But if you would ask me, how about 54's effects for a company that has a vastly bigger budget than what that film had in the modern day, would I say it's as good? No, given the fact is that you have far more resources to do even more, but all you're able to do is emulate something that was good for its time and is good by that metric, but not as good now. That would like, there's a point that if you're going to criticize something or compare things that are not always completely analogous, that you then have to explain this criteria in greater detail.
Yeah, allow me to go on a rant in regards to the definition of peak fiction, because this is I'm going to bring up this up. So you know how people still consider to this day Lord of the Rings to be the greatest trilogy of movies of all time? There is a reason for that, because it was adapting faithfully one of the greatest works of fantasy of all time. Now, the reason why I consider the words peak fiction to be so sacred is because it applies, first of all, the greatest application of human imagination onto a story being told for a specific purpose, and it also well, I forgot the word. It also exemplifies the sheer level of effort, blood, sweat, and tears that it took to create that piece of art, right? And to me, peak fiction will always be the very best, so good that throughout for years to come, it will be near impossible to replicate but that is the ideal to strive towards. I think the word peak fiction refers to the ideal to strive towards. So the thing that I don't understand in regards to what Vic mentioned is, where does that fall? Where does Scar King taking that building and chucking it at Kong, where does that fall into that?
I just think, like, for me, is my only like spectrum is like, is this the coolest thing I've ever seen? And peak fiction, I think it's cool to someone to have like imagined that and put it on screen for me to see. I just think that's like the peakest thing ever.
Yeah, but like again, anybody could
I
do
think-
that with literally any
I
action,
think-
and it would
I think
have this
Vic,
effect.
if I may posit my interpretation of what you're saying, I think what he means is like personal enjoyment. Like, this is the ideal that I would personally strive for when with my kind of stories.
Sure, that's fair.
If that makes sense.
I wouldn't say personal, because to this day, the Lord of the Rings is still unmatched in terms of storytelling, theme, I wouldn't say acting, but because
I'd say there's some good acting in that movie.
No, I would say there is good acting, but like, acting can be rivaled. The acting of Lord of the Rings can be rivaled. There's a lot of actors even nowadays that I think would be great in that kind of movie, precisely because of not only their range but their ability to emote in such a convincing way. However, that is kind of hard to measure. I would say like even the music serves a purpose. Like, narratively, the music serves a very interesting purpose. Like, that kind of movie is absolutely timeless, where all the elements from cinematic, like, the use of camera, right, the writing, the consideration of the adaptation as well, because I was like, the Lord of the Rings is one of the greatest adaptations of literally anything ever. And that's not merely just my opinion either. Like, it is a really much a retelling of the original story to the best of its ability, and on top of the fact that the sheer effort in both like the props and like the anything in regards to like the acting and the visual effects, the book is the blueprint. On top of the fact that the camera work and the when I say the visuals, mainly I'm just referring to like the color grading, is done so meticulously to achieve a particular vision, the kind of vision that you would have when you're reading Lord of the Rings. That's why when you look at any scene, for example, any scene with Eowyn, for example, where she not Eowyn, what's the name of the elf that
Galadriel?
gives Galadriel, any scene with Galadriel, for example, where she looks angelic, like the elves look angelic on purpose when they're on screen. That is visual language right there. That the kind of stuff you would expect from the book, and there is also a thematic purpose to it as well, right? The thematic purpose of having the angels is because they are seen as incredibly righteous, kind of like an angel, right? Now, I haven't read the books. I'm mainly familiar with the extended version of the movies, which is the best way to possibly watch them, because it provides the absolute best experience and the most I was about to say comic accurate, the most accurate representation of the books, to my knowledge.
I mean, comic accurate is not the worst description in this context.
Yeah, but if to any Lord of the Rings fan, if you call it a comic, they would literally crucify
Or
you.
like it's
I
like
know.
the thing is that like that's another thing about adaptate. Like, Lord of the Rings is an interesting topic when it comes to adaptation, but like I think that like when it comes to just Lord of the Rings on its own terms, the film is able to elevate itself due to the score, due to the passion behind it, due to how much they wanted to keep consistent with Tolkien's vision, even though they had to, for the sake of adaptation, to change a few things here and there. But for the most part, when you look at that, you think this is Middle Earth, this is Tolkien's work, where you get other adaptations like Godzilla 98 that do not really do that. And like, I think that also like I don't even think of my own personal taste when I think of something being peak fiction. I think that there's a lot of like movies and like that I just didn't really vibe with. Like, I think Uncut Gems is a really good film, but I just did not particularly like it all that much. Pan's Labyrinth, I think, is also a very good film. I don't particularly vibe with it. Xena wanted to attribute something that I actually pulled up somewhere, or did I get rid of it? I think I might have got rid of it. Sorry, I'm gonna have to pull it back up again. But essentially, it describes two types of movie buffs. So let me pull that up. Oh no, it's still there. So yeah, you have the immature and the mature. I like this movie. It is good. This movie is good. I like it. Which I'd say it narrows it down to a degree, but like when it comes to GXK, at least outside of the fact that I just don't really like the story all of that much. Even looking at what's come before, if you were to ask me like, oh, do you think the action's better? No, I think even GVK had better action than GXK. I think Emma Russell is a better female scientist. She's written better than Eileen is. I think Bernie and Trapper don't do as good of a job as supporting characters versus even Madison from the last film or the supporting characters from 2014 or King of the Monsters. Design-wise, I think Evolved Godzilla isn't as well designed as Godzilla's normal designs are, or even like how he got this power, the world building, the writing behind that isn't as good as like even Burning Godzilla, even though Burning Godzilla is less explained directly than Evolved Godzilla. I think Star King's motives or like the writing behind that isn't as good as King Ghidorah or Mecha Godzilla or the Michos or the Skullcrawlers. There's just, even at those films, what we've gotten before is just better in its own franchise. And like, could I
I'm
be like
basically the opposite.
Like, can
I
I
would
look
say
at
that
those?
it's a complete insult to put a movie like GXK, calling it peak fiction. I think it would be an insult to a movie that actually fit that category.
Like, I would say that, yeah, like, even though there's a lot of problems with it, I would say, like, King of the Monsters deserves the idea of peak fiction more than GXK does.
Yes.
By a very, very small fraction, I would say. Because, again, I do agree with you when you say that Emma Russell is a much better character than Eileen Andrews, because at least there is something to Emma Russell. Now, I don't think it's intelligent, but it's definitely something, and I will happily take that over Eileen Andrews, because Eileen Andrews is just a nothing character. I know nothing about her. I don't know who she is. I don't know what she likes. I don't know what she dislikes. I don't understand what her personality is. Again, like I said.
Well, the thing that's interesting is that, like, we got something about Eileen earlier where, like, she's a primatologist and she studies Kong, but, like, for the whole film, she doesn't really use her skills to the test in either film. Most of what she is doing is ferrying around Gia, which I think out of all the characters, Gia is the one that is the strongest characters from the Wingard duology. And even then, there's still a lot of, I know that we said the tropes aren't bad, but like if a character really embodies that trope to the letter without too much else that's discernible, then that's when it becomes a problem, why people think like a film is too tropey, which is when I will agree with Despot on that angle, at least.
I also like how Despot described the plot, a non sequitur plot, which basically I think what he means by that, but given the definition of non sequitur, is that things just kind of happen. Oh, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. I remember some advice for writers that the writers of South Park gave, where they say you don't want to write this happened and then that happened. You want to write it. This happened, but this happened, and therefore this happened, but this happened, but this also happened, and then this happened. I think that approach is completely lost in GXK.
Well, I think that like a non sequitur is a conclusion or statement that doesn't logically follow from the previous argument or statement. And I think that like in the case, I think that there is do the events logically follow through to some degree? Yes, but do they follow well based on the world building and writing we've seen from the previous films? No. Like if you just like, does the idea of the Star King realm really fit the Hollow Earth that we saw even in the last film? Not particularly. Does Shimo as a character fit within the world based on what we've known of everything based off of the other films? Definitely not. They actually literally had to retcon her into Cottom's lore. And same thing applies for like Godzilla getting a new form. It's how we got a new form and caught him is explained in that film and built off of that film as a very specific special circumstance.
Yeah.
Whereas with GXK, Godzilla essentially is now able to do almost anything based on the fact that it's like a DNA absorption along with being able to absorb just natural radiation. Scar King's motives and he treats his subjects doesn't fit based on how they're treated as well as what his goals are. Not to mention he shouldn't have even been able to get to power in the first place based on how he treats people. So, like, we could, if you were to show me and avoid a fight from Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, I would probably say that like the circumstances behind it would be very different from how the movie actually gets to that conclusion.
I would also like
another,
to present.
I have another example.
Sorry. What were you saying?
I have another example about the how the writing in GXK doesn't work compared to the others. Even if we were to say like, okay, like the trope thing isn't much of having a movie with tropes isn't much of an issue, but the thing is like the whole chosen one trope that's used for Gia in the film ultimately kind of just is so that she could bring Mothra into the mix, which unfortunately it takes away Mothra's agency, which is what she had in King of the Monsters. Because why would Mothra need to have like an Iwi child to call to her to help with the Scar King? Why wouldn't it be in Mothra's best interest to just help Godzilla with the Scar King's return? Regardless, like, why do they even need Gia for this?
Yeah, well, actually, a good question right here is that if like F-29 is, but like F-29 puts out everything pretty sequentially. So Kong's trap opens access to subterranean realm, therefore the Iwi alert Kong, Godzilla, and Gia. So then therefore Godzilla sets out to get power, but Gia doesn't know what to make the message while Kong needs his tooth treated. In the case of the alert being the Iwi alert taking place, the fact is that like originally the Iwi weren't from the Hollow Earth, they are from Skull Island, so that's immediately a retcon there because we need the Iwi down there for the alert, which is a problem. But then the other problem too is that the entire alert is hinged off of a prophecy, which I've never been a fan of prophecies because ultimately in most cases, if you don't play with the idea of prophecies in general, then the events of a film are usually a foregone conclusion. And in this case,
no free will whatsoever. Either.
Like Gia doesn't really suffer any setbacks in releasing Mothra, and due to the fact that Shima's presence in the Monsterverse lore contradicts what was established in King of the Monsters, and the fact is that the Iwi didn't raise an alert for the events of Kadam, even though what actually happens in King of the Monsters is far more of a world-ending threat than what we see in GXK. It just makes that whole plot run a little hollow. And I'd say with Kong needing his tooth replaced, that is fine because like you sometimes you need a small bit of contrivance to start a film. Like, and immediately when I'm thinking of like contrivances or a character being a chosen one, I immediately think of Luke Skywalker from the original Star Wars. And at least in the first Star Wars movie, Luke doesn't do a whole lot and he gets beat up quite a bit in that film. And his success is hinged on the luck and being supported by other people. Whereas in the case of Gia, nothing really happens to her and she fulfills her destiny almost like completely fine without any issue. The only like human that we know by name that directly dies is set up to be as antagonistic as possible, so his death isn't felt that hard. And
he's the most logical person in the movie too, as well. It's kind of like a running thing that Adam Wingard does. Like any person that uses logic in that movie is immediately punished, which I think is very unself-aware.
Yeah, or the fact that like now at this point in the Monsterverse, you have Godzilla, you have Kong teamed up completely fine. You have Mothra, so you have three very powerful monsters, and one of them can power up on his own now because of what you've set up. So then you have to really, really write well-made stakes in order for like anything to actually have some kind of impact.
Yeah, there are no stakes anymore. I mean, with Gia being able to call Mothra whenever she wants, that's pretty much an instant win button. And if Gia feels like she needs Godzilla around, she can just have Mothra do that as well, and Godzilla will obey because Mothra is his baby.
Or
So
the fact
again,
that there's also the ape army as well, and you have Shimo.
and Godzilla's already overpowered even without the his evolved form. So like Gia is easily the most powerful human in the Monsterverse right now because she literally has an instant win button at her disposal at all times.
Well, where do we get that from? Because my interpretation is that isn't that she could just call on Mothra whenever. Is that she was just needed for that?
Well, she was
moment.
able to summon Mothra. Mothra doesn't dissipate. Not to mention the fact that she was able to get to the surface on Mothra without using a heave to get back up there. So she has something that she can rely on to cross the barrier that was a big plot point in the last film. Not to mention the fact that Kong also can sense where Gia is. So if Kong is able to get to a Hollow Earth portal, then she'll have another win button on command. Not to mention that Kong has Shimo. Kong, if he wants to, can bring Shimo or bring just a bunch of apes with him.
That's like a four times instant win button. Like any conflict is immediately solved. Like any new conflict that will be immediately solved by having.
Or the fact that like Kong was able to sense Gia at the Iwi camp, which is how he was able to like for Project Powerhouse to get to them.
I mean,
yeah.
To counteract this point, and this is something that to me has been proven based off of previous streams, the fact that we have been able to come up with different ideas and methods to go past the whole she can call on Mothra, therefore the most powerful thing. Godzilla can evolve on his own, blah blah bloop, that kind of stuff. The fact that we have the fact that there are stories to be able to rectify that issue, that makes it less of a problem.
Well, wait. What are you trying to say here? What are you trying to say here?
I want to.
The pitches.
The pitches. The thing is that like the it's still a problem because like we can come up with these pitches, but the fact is that ultimately,
like they may not happen, but the fact that the concept of rectifying this problem still exists, to me at least, makes this less of a problem.
But
that doesn't really.
What if they don't? Here's the question.
Come up with it doesn't mean the
writers
made
them unnecessarily powerful. But let me finish my point. They made them unnecessarily powerful, but if played right, there's a way to fix this. There are ways to change things up. Stakes still can exist.
Yeah, but the question is, will they? Because just because we can come up with it doesn't mean they can, or whether they were even willing to.
Yeah, it's not a question of can; it's a matter of will. Because I think that it's very much we can, like outside of us. I think there's like I don't consider myself to be the end all be all when it comes to writers. I think there's people who could probably come up with solutions that are better than mine. But even if they can come up with a better solution than myself, does that solution actually appear on screen? I don't know. I think more than likely what's going to happen is that they're not going to bother with a solution anyway. They're just going to hope that the audience is going to think, oh, like we're on to new things. This is what we want to see. And like, I think that's why like, I think that's why a lot of those critics will insult the audience. I don't abide by it. I don't think there's too much point in doing so, but I understand why they would do that if they notice a pattern where like the directors and creatives in these companies don't focus on these problems, but they can see that fans are able to work around these issues, but nothing changes, and a lot of people will just go along with it.
I also think that the movies insult the intelligence of the fans more than the reviewers that criticize these movies, because they're hoping they kind of hope that you don't notice these problems. This is something like Adam Wingard. Well, not Adam Wingard. Like I don't think the next director, Frank Spitore, is going to address every single problem with the Monsterverse, at least like from a writing standpoint, because there's just so many. So I don't think it would be he could, but at the same time, if you spend so much time rectifying the past, you're gonna forget to tell your story. Mm-hmm. So he's gonna have a tough time trying to balance that out. So I don't think he's gonna be able to do that in just one movie either.
Yeah, like even with my own pitch that I did for a Monsterverse sequel, a lot of it was focused on telling a good story that also sets a new status quo. And I think that like a lot of directors do not like setting up new status quos, and they don't like being the ones to be like to pitch into a universe. A lot of times, a lot of directors want to be the ones to leave the mark on the franchise and have people remember their mark on the franchise. Biggest example of that is The Last Jedi from Disney, and I would say that GVK and GXK are kind of that for the Monsterverse. And with the MCU, I would say there's less examples of that because of the more top-down structure that series seems to have, to where they need to make everything as on brand and formulaic as possible, where they have other issues of their own.
Yeah, and they completely misunderstood what made the MCU successful, because they thought the actor Robert Downey Jr. was what made the MCU successful, but it wasn't the actor himself, it was the character and how he was written. So now bringing him back just shows a complete misunderstanding of the point of the character of Iron Man. They think they can just buy our love back by giving Robert Downey Jr. millions of dollars to play Doctor Doom, one of the most important Marvel villains of all time.
Like the writing will depend on like whether or not they actually would be able to pull off Doctor Doom, or it would just be like a skinwalker, like in the guise of Robert Downey Jr. because it's a recognizable face that people would be like, "Oh, hey, it's RDJ, he's back."
I mean, Chris Evans is technically already back. It's not Captain America again.
With Doctor Doom, I think the biggest sign with Doctor Doom is if they let him keep the mask on. If they take off the mask, then they screwed up.
That's the thing, is that I think that like more than likely that they would have him take off the mask, because why would they announce Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doctor Doom if not to have there be some connection?
Just so people know, oh, this is Robert Downey Jr. under the mask, by the way. I think that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but back on the point of peak fiction, I really do not think any Monsterverse movie falls into that category, because there's so many things to cover when it comes to like the concept of peak fiction, not just the writing, but just overall, just every single thing down to like cultural impact as well. Because let's be honest, GXK did not have as much of a cultural impact as -1 did, and even then, I wouldn't call -1 peak fiction, because even now people are still arguing, questioning its quality. Now, like in the Mauler server, there was this one guy, and this can be like its own stream. So like if Zim, if you're up for it, then just let me know. But this person wanted to do some revisionism in regards to like the historical context in which the movie seems to operate under. I mean, this person believes, I'm not necessarily sure if I agree, but I can definitely see the point that there are some contentions between that movie and Oppenheimer. I mean, the movie, from his perspective, was completely ignoring all the crimes that Japan did.
I'm gonna dismiss that outright. That's a stupid argument. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we
had two separate streams discussing this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
never mind.
no, it's more because I think that the criticism of the film doesn't talk about how bad Japan is a weak criticism and has very little to do with the film, because the film isn't addressing characters who would be involved in this type of scenario.
So no, see, that's true. That is true. That's why I was so like cautious about bringing this up.
Yeah, if you go back and look at the Godzilla -1 is anti-art, apparently that's like the biggest stream that I did where I talked about that whole point. And yeah, no, that's silly. Like actually what tag literally I'd be tag me in like
I think
that
we also
discussion.
touched on it. I think we also touched a bit on it on the Godzilla Day.
Yeah, we touched on a little bit on Godzilla Day, not as much though.
Yeah, but still.
But yeah, like literally, like if he's like responded recently or talked about it, sometime like not if it's been like several months, tag me in it just so I can look at it. But if it's something that he's brought up recently in the server, tag me to it, so then I'd love to actually have the discussion on it, because almost anytime I've heard anyone use that as an argument, it's silly.
Right. Okay. All right. I will, because it was I found that out yesterday because Astro let me know about it and he wanted my thoughts on it. But really, I don't know enough about history to really have an opinion on it.
Well, yeah. Again, like the argument is that so by the logic of other soldiers committing war crimes, does that mean every soldier in an army is culpable for those war crimes? Or if one unit does something, is another unit that didn't also culpable? And I think that like it just descends into like a very it's like a weird guilt by association type of scenario that like only under very specific circumstances do I feel it's at least valid. Yeah.
I want to steer the discussion back into the original subject as well, both in peak fiction and 98, because that's what the stream is about, because we've been talking about everything except 98. For example, let's say I personally do not think that 98 is as bad as people say it is. It's not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, especially as an adaptation to what Godzilla is. I don't think it's because from what I've noticed, it seems as if the French have replaced Japan, sort of.
No, they replaced America.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, because they're the ones that mutate Godzilla, similar to how America is the one that technically mutates Godzilla.
Oh, right.
Then that also like the thing is that like the inclusion of the French as the creators of Godzilla makes it topical only for that time period, but then it doesn't really do anything, and then ultimately makes one of the only somewhat interesting characters just essentially just an espionage, a nationalist who commits espionage, so his crimes can go under the radar, which is I think worse than like, oh, Godzilla -1 doesn't talk about Japanese war crimes, because there's a character directly trying to hide the mistakes of his country and their involvement in it, and spies
on that point to an extent, because Philippe doesn't cover up anything.
Yeah, he does. He erases his involvement from the tape that Animal.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, he takes the tape that
he's
Animal.
A secret agent, and it's part of his job, but he doesn't cover up the fact that the French had anything to do with it.
Well, but actually, no. He literally says he's a patriot and he's trying to clean up the mistakes that his country created. And even though he's a secret agent, the fact is that the only reason why there was possible, that people knew there was possible French involvement is because Audrey leaked the story. Had that not happened, more than likely the U.S. wouldn't have The U.S. probably wouldn't have mentioned the French involvement. Or another thing too is the fact that Philippe also bugs Mayor Ebert in order to directly know what's going on in terms of Godzilla's involvement, instead of just France as an entity lending its resources to helping America with an issue that they directly caused. Because at least in -1, there is a direct reason why America isn't involved in this issue with Japan, while in 98 they don't even explain why the French government isn't directly being involved in this affair.
Yeah.
Sure,
yeah, he did mention explicitly many times that he did not want but I also think that that the U.S. could have helped them cover up. Like if they helped Japan cover up all their war crimes, then surely if the French embassy went to the U.S. For help, because they're like, oh, we need your help in trying to clean up this mess, and we believe this mess is at your doorstep, so please don't rat us out. We're going to help you just as long as you help us cover this up. I'm pretty sure that the U.S. could especially if they get it provides a net positive for the entire world. I think they would more than likely agree to do it anyway.
Or the fact that you also have what's it called, Shin Godzilla directly commenting on international relations, and say what we will about the people who don't like Shin in this audience, but Shin at least makes a comment on this, and it feels more realistic and logical than how it is portrayed in 98.
Right. Yeah, I do not think for a second that the U.S. would not help the French cover up if they're actively trying to help them, get rid of this one problem that is, bothering one of the largest cities in the United States right now.
Yeah.
So,
the fact that the damn thing washed up on U.S. soil is enough to raise alarm.
Exactly. So the French going,
or the fact that
"Hey,
like
this is our
also
fault
it is
because
an
of Canada."
international incident too, because it was there was a Japanese ship that was attacked, then US ships, and then it becomes more directly impacting the Americans because it also hits another sovereign country, Jamaica. Also hits through what's that call it? Panama, like Panama, and it heads up to New York. So like that should say it all in terms of how 98 handles any kind of diplomatic relations with other countries.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, but yeah,
because
I
like
think oh, go ahead.
Oh no, what's it called? I was just reading F29's comments. I think the U.S. could have supplied the supplies needed for Operation Watatsumi. Well, the U.S. is essentially in charge of the League of Nations, so any supplies like the Takao and the like that is being given back to Japan to handle Watatsumi is technically the U.S.'s involvement, but they cannot directly help because of the Soviet American
Yeah, it's like the very beginning of Cold War tensions. Like it's or at least
Not to mention that as the
1947.
Russians being the direct enemy of America and Japan being completely in the purview of America, the Russians would see Japan as America adjacent. So as a result, I think it has less to do with Yamazaki not liking Russia and more realistically portraying how Russia would have reacted if having the opportunity to take on Japan and expand its influence into Asia, considering the fact that Russia, after dealing with the Germans, did turn eastward further to deal with the Japanese.
Yeah. And I think it's good that we're talking about the plot of 98 again, because I also like wanted to bring up like a lot of the character decisions were very, very questionable, I would say. For example, Audrey. There's this one line in particular that really bothered me. Like I audibly screamed when it happened.
Which one?
It was the one when Audrey and Nick reunite. I audibly screamed because so far the information that we have was Nick and Audrey. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nick and Audrey dated for 4 years. Nick popped the question.
And she just ghosted him
for 8 years, and she has the audacity to say, "Oh well, people change in 8 years," as implying that the reason why they broke up in the first place was that she cheated, which it really is not what happened.
I don't even think that she cheated. Like all we
no,
really
I'm saying
know...
that she didn't. She didn't. I don't think she did. Yeah,
okay.
But it sounds like it. It sounds like the kind of stuff a cheater would say.
Yeah, I would say it does sound like this kind of stuff a cheater would say. I think my reading was always that, like, essentially she ghosted him for 8 years, and the only reason why she's getting back in his life is literally to cover the story, which is the case because she steals the tape from him. But I'd say the thing that bites more is the fact is that she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry you feel that way," and essentially tries to guilt him into feeling like the bad guy when she's the one who left him. When he was emotionally vulnerable.
That's exactly
and like
where I was
maybe
going.
I'm gonna keep it 100% honest. Maybe because of personal experience that bites more for me, but like it's extremely scummy. And the fact is that like I know
the thing that makes it even worse is that she inevitably does get what she wants. At some point, she does get that story. She does get that scoop.
Right.
Even
we're supposed to feel sorry for
after it's taken from her during the Madison Square Garden. Her whole thing is pivotal to the plot, and that at least to me adds a lot more salt into her character.
Yeah.
And
at least she gets punished for it. At least she gets like somewhat punished for it with the guy hitting on her, stealing the information from her and claiming it as his own. I would say that's some form of punishment.
Yeah, but the thing is that like even though they paint like her being upset about the fact that she hurt Nick again, nowhere else in the film does it really like indicate to us that she cared about Nick. And with how the events play out, it's more that she's upset about the fact that he stole her story instead of ruining Nick's career. Because had she gotten the scoop, she wouldn't have been in a position for Nick to see Nick and see him upset.
Yeah. On top of the fact that really her relationship just comes across as, oh, I just like Nick because, well, he's cute. And this is just something, a recurring theme. Women just think he's cute for some reason.
Like, okay, Matthew Broderick isn't the worst looking guy on the planet, but like, really?
Him of all, like, okay, if this was, I'm sorry to always bring up this one guy, but come on, he's like he's the perfect nerd. Henry Cavill, then sure, I get it. Although I really wouldn't see Henry Cavill playing a role like Nick, but
he could play Godzilla the series Nick. He could do that really well.
Yes, I do believe
Godzilla
that.
the series Nick voiced by the guy behind Finn Shepard?
Let me check that.
Yeah. Nick from the Godzilla the series is much more
that the
believably
Sharknado
attractive
guy?
than.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
I find it much more believable that
Yeah. It's like he looks pretty good.
Yeah, he's got that jawline that could cut.
Yeah, the guy from Sharknado, yeah.
Yeah.
It's much more believable.
If I may refer back to the one line that you Black Aruni and Zim were talking about, like for me, and the way it relates to her arc in the movie is that she is acting like Cayman in that scene. Because when I watched that scene, that line in particular is her trying to act like how Cayman did in the scenes when like Audrey's trying to like talk to her about a promotion, and like the way he says, oh, like because Cayman acts the same way where he makes it think that it's her fault, like for not like sleeping with him or stuff like that, that it's your fault you're not getting the promotion, which
that's the other problem too arc. Is that in the film the thing is that she doesn't even need to go through Cayman to get her promotion. She needs to talk to Humphreys.
Exactly. Like he wants to expedite the process.
She wanted to expedite the process, and Cayman wanted to get something out of it because he realized that she had asked. So she put herself in that position. I'm not saying what happened to her isn't wrong or anything like that, but I'm saying
he's more of a chess man, but whatever.
Because of the fact that because of what she says and how Cayman responds, she doesn't just talk to Humphreys herself. Even if like Cayman could block that anyway, there's nothing in the film that says that. And the other thing too is that another reason why she's acting this way is because of Animal's wife is talking about how she like needs to be a killer to get ahead. But the problem with that is that even if we're gonna say, oh, maybe Cayman was a killer and that's how he got ahead, but the thing is that Lucy she's not in a position that's better than Audrey is. So like, I'm not sure why she put so much stock into the idea of nice guys not finishing last. Like if like were Lucy in like a position as a like reporter doing her own thing since she had more freedom, and it's because she was more cutthroat about things, then yeah, maybe that would make more sense for her to be naive and follow what Lucy says. But when you're told in the same scene that Audrey's been doing all this extra work for Cayman, is so resourceful and so smart, but for some reason is extremely stupid in this one instance, so that she acts a certain way towards Nick and is able to move the plot along, is where there feels like there's an issue there. Not to mention the fact that by the end of the film, even though like she technically makes it right by trying to show that Nick was right all along, that comes at the cost of almost getting them all killed. So like that doesn't really make up for everything that happened. And like I've had saying that, hey, maybe my theory was right, would it really I think logically for most people, would it make up for the fact that I've had to run for my life because from giant creatures that I probably could have stopped earlier had you not done what you had done? Because had Audrey not stolen the tape, Nick could have found the nest earlier, the nest is destroyed, everything's good. But instead, Audrey's actions directly put her life, Animal's life, Philippe's life, my life in danger, and cost the lives of several other people.
You're right, I forgot about that.
Fair.
Oh wow.
Like the thing is that all of Philippe's men who get killed are a result of Audrey's actions. And not to mention their near death is also Audrey's fault.
I think she might be a worse love interest than Mary Jane in the Raimi movies.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, I can say this. Having
Rudy, was it ever a
98,
competition? Like Mary Jane It's been a bit since I've seen the Raimi movie, so I'm going off memory here. Mixed at best. How was this ever a competition?
Well,
I just didn't realize just how bad her actions were.
Well, if you think about it,
Audrey's.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Like I knew they were bad, but I didn't know how consequential they were.
Actually,
that just makes the fact that she gets what she wants even worse.
Mary Jane, well,
It's
Mary
'cause
Jane
she's
also
blonde,
got what
that's
she
why.
wanted. But the other thing too is the fact that Mary Jane's the dynamic with her and Peter in the second film is what causes Peter to almost lose his powers, which means Spider-Man was almost not a thing anymore in that second film. Not to mention the fact that her still being involved with Peter to some degree is what ends up causing her to be captured by Venom and ends up getting Harry killed.
Yeah.
So basically, Nick Totopoulos should have just went with the redhead and called it a day, because she was clearly into him way more.
Exactly, yeah.
He should have tapped that.
Well, the thing too that's even funny about that is the fact is they do a lot of will they won't they with Elsie in Godzilla the series.
Exactly. Which is even funnier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't he ditch Audrey in the Strapped sequel?
No, remember, Philippe kidnaps him, and then Audrey also calls off their wedding for something that isn't even his fault, which is why I'm like, across the universes, Audrey, you are still the worst Godzilla character.
Throughout heaven and earth, she alone
is the dishonored one.
Damn, like
all of time, her cucking abilities are truly sublime. She alone is the blonde one.
I thought Haruo was the worst Godzilla character.
I'll say this, you know what? I will take discount Eren Yeager over Audrey any day of the week.
I don't hate Haruo.
I don't hate him either.
He's just like a copy paste of Eren Yeager, but becomes
just way less interesting.
I don't. To me,
it's his ending actions that really solidify him as one of my least favorite Godzilla characters, because you ditch your wife.
Yeah, in theory, like
it was a god.
Haruo,
girlfriend. Their relationship is nebulous at best, and die.
Wasn't that his cousin?
No, they're not related. Remember, it's her grandfather that he calls grandfather because of their essentially familial connection.
Oh my god, I thought thank God. For the longest time I thought
well, that's essentially how he saw her, was as like a sister, essentially. She was the one who was like more into him than he was into her.
I think it's also like a common like Japanese trope that like family friends are like more regarded as family. You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's still something you see in like
it's not even just Japanese. It's a thing that I do that with some family friends.
Literally, I think all of us have at least that one family friend who you call uncle, even though you have no relation to them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like in Red Dead Redemption. Yeah, in Red Dead Redemption, there's a character named Uncle. Who like John Marston refers to him as Uncle. His son refers to him as Uncle. Like the wife, Abigail, refers to him as Uncle. Like he's just known by Uncle. Who had lumbago. That's why he doesn't do shit.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Haruo as a character, like in theory, could have been pretty solid. It's just that trilogy just horrific. The execution of him was like horrific, and I don't just mean his suicide, just in general.
I think the suicide is just what solidified it. It was just
it basically nuked any chance of him even just being like, okay, well, at the very least, like you got an ending that would be fitting, even if the road getting there was rocky to say the least. But
I saw that as him like refusing to accept that Godzilla is the alpha, and he would rather die than live in a world where he has to submit to Godzilla, which I thought.
Well, it was that, but it was also that like, humanity was gonna inevitably create more monsters in the Hatua, where that even just sounds like Hakutoa now. And
shut up! No,
stop.
I hate you.
What? It came into my head, and now you all are cursed with this knowledge.
God damn it, dude!
The thing is, like, the idiot scientist, pretty much all like, hey, we can use the nanometal to, like, to just, like, get us, like, back to somewhere, even though like, in the second movie, he was like, oh, I don't know about this nanometal shit, Haro or whoever, like, I think it might be bad. It's like he knew how the negatives of, like, the nanometal that the Vulture was made out of, and what was on Yuko and all that. So why would he just completely do a 180? So even that character was assassinated, as well as Haro by the end. Jeez.
Yeah.
Fuck those movies.
Well, wasn't it more so that, like, it was a way to, like, restart, like, human advancements in technology?
No, the problem was the thing is, he knew that the nanometal was bad. Like, he knew that the nanometal was like, could eventually, like, destroy the world or turn the world into metal, as Ultron would kind of call it. But it's like, it was so, like, he knew it was bad, but then at the end of Planet Eater, he's opted to, like, hey, we could just use this. It's like hello.
Maybe that nanometal wasn't so bad after all.
Yeah, exactly. He changed his mind for no reason.
I thought that he discovered something.
The only reason is probably because of, like, given the new lifestyle they have to live in order to survive, I guess.
Well, that was a very slapdash way of a step. Well, they really did a slapdash way of a step in it, if that's the case.
Why don't they just turn all
even
into
the
bubbles?
civilization that we saw in the previous movie had zero trust in it.
Black, I got a question for you.
I may have an answer.
How many soldiers does a sergeant usually command?
How many soldiers does a sergeant usually command?
Out in the field, yeah.
Like in training?
Just generally.
That doesn't make it clear, because, like, that depends, because one thing is like a single platoon, and one other thing is an entire company. Because usually when an entire company, well, that depends, because sometimes it's a 4 platoon. Actually, no, it's 5 platoons with around 30 to 50 people per platoon, and sometimes it's for an entire company, and because sometimes it's because there's always people moving in and out. So, like, I'm not entirely. I think that just depends on what.
If you're out in the field, then usually,
like during wartime or something.
Yeah,
like that?
Exactly.
That's a good question. I actually don't know,
because typically, from what I've always understood, is that, like, a typical rank for command of a squad, which is usually about 8 soldiers, is a sergeant. Where you have, like, a lieutenant and higher, those are the ranks that are usually commanding larger clusters of soldiers at other levels. So, like, a platoon is usually led by a lieutenant, and a squad's led by a staff sergeant. And a company is usually by a captain, lieutenant colonel by a battalion, and a brigade is led by a colonel. So, you know how O'Neill is the one essentially in charge of all the ground operations in 98?
Sure.
He's literally just a sergeant.
O'Neill, yeah.
The fact that, like, a single sergeant is the one essentially commanding everything on the ground is crazy to me.
Dude, I had that in the back of my mind, but, like, I didn't know how to, like, I knew something was, like, I didn't know, my brain noticed it, but I just didn't know how to put it into words.
Yeah.
I, like, in the back of my mind, like, is a sergeant supposed to be, like, at the helm of this big of an operation?
No. Not to mention, like, neither would a colonel. Like, a colonel wouldn't be in charge of, like, what is the equivalent of a domestic terrorist attack like this. Like, you wouldn't just have one colonel doing that.
Yeah.
I understand that, like, you would probably want to have at least one, like, higher ranking military official to serve as almost a archetype for the military. But when you have just a colonel, and then his second is what is literally a sergeant, and he is the one literally doing everything on the ground, and you could have just, made him either, like, a captain, where he's commanding a company, That would make more sense given the fact that like you're usually seeing around 60 to 200 soldiers whenever O'Neill's around. So yeah, having him be Captain O'Neill instead of Sergeant O'Neill would make a whole lot more sense.
You're right. You're definitely right. I can't believe I didn't. I should know that. I should know that. Why don't I
I
know?
was wondering what the punchline for this was.
No, because literally, I remember a long time ago, I had like asked people, be like, "Hey, what rank do you think O'Neill is based on the command he has over the troops in this movie?" And I like put like lieutenant colonel, captain, lieutenant, and sergeant. And a lot of people thought he was like a lieutenant or a captain or something, because Captain O'Neill sounds right, but no, he's literally just a sergeant.
Yeah.
Man, I'm ashamed of myself. I should know this.
You're welcome.
Well, you learn something new every day.
Pogue hours, I guess.
I'm probably the only one who knew where this was going.
Yeah, because you've heard this argument before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no. I hate bringing this subject again, but like the peak. Who keeps pinging me?
Who pinged me? Who pinged me?
It's just my server. Never mind. I like the conversation we were having in regards to peak fiction and how we defined it. I really like that conversation.
Godzilla 98. There you go.
I don't know.
My definition of peak fiction is How to Train Your Dragon.
It's a good movie. It's not a bad movie by any.
I am not excited for that remake.
I don't know why they're doing that.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I get you.
The Dark Knight's peak fiction.
It's not a bad movie either.
If I was to like,
it is culturally still culturally relevant, and it is culturally impactful, and there's a lot like. But in regards to like their actual writing, which again, it's really not bad, but
I'd say like if I was to name like one
about
that's not
the Dark Knight,
if I was to name a monster, like a non-monster movie film that says like peak fiction, Gladiator.
I would not call Gladiator a monster movie.
No, I said a non-monster movie.
Oh, a non-monster movie. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, still, like, there's just something about the Dark Knight that really bothers me every time I watch it.
I'm curious.
I just can't put my finger on it. Like, what exactly is the problem? It's like whenever I'm watching the Dark Knight.
Well, that's why it's great. You can't describe what the problem is. If you don't know what the problem is, it doesn't exist.
So, like, it feels like there's like an itch. You know how sometimes in your leg there's like an itch you have, but when you scratch it, the itch just magically teleports somewhere else, but you can't pinpoint where.
Oh, that's excellent.
That's how the Dark Knight feels for me. It's like a phantom itch.
With regards to peak fiction and all that, if I were to place it, like if I were to really place it on a movie, I think I would have to think about it. But for example, because when it comes to peak fiction, I don't think it just has to be a movie. It could be like a segment of a book and or like a segment of a movie. An example I would think is like the last scene of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I would call peak fiction just because it was a moment that I'm like always hyped about and love seeing. And stuff. Same with like Scar King throwing the building, or what would be another one? Like another moment. I'm trying to think. Or like
it was a soldier of Rome. Help me carry him. I swear.
I just wish that the definition was a lot less ambiguous, because I feel like.
Well, I think because of the fact that it's been used so much ironically, that it's become irony poisoned.
Yeah, and now it sounds ambiguous no matter in what context you use it. So, like when you say Scar King throwing a building with the whip, like like you never thought about that, but I don't think anybody's ever done something like that in a movie before.
Yeah.
But again, just the question of can is overshadowed by the question of should.
Yeah, because I think that like essentially when I've looked up like what peak fiction means, even like the definition sounds like overly verbose because it's trying to like aspire to be
dictionary?
but not like online dictionaries.
Oh.
So, like, the pinnacle of literary enchantment, where words ascend to celestial heights and storytelling reaches its zenith. That's one that I found.
Wait, what's your sauce? What's the sauce?
I mean,
I'll
it's a.
put it right
I wouldn't
here.
say it's a bad definition, but it uses too much prose for it to mean something concrete.
Yeah,
To me,
and like
to
again,
me,
this
it
is
just
also like a
wouldn't-
fan
to me,
submission as
that
well.
def-
Like,
that
Like
definition
if the
itself-
definition is made explicitly to make you feel like you're like experiencing theosis or something.
and like
to me,
even
the
what's it
definition
called?
just screams vague. Like, what do we
Yeah.
define as the pinnacle?
And I think that like I don't think that there is a absolute pinnacle when it comes to fiction. I think there's a lot of films and a lot of fiction in general that can be argued to be pinnacle. Like, however, like even like canon is something that I think has a more concrete definition. Like, if someone was to ask me like what I would consider to be the Western canon, I can name off books. Same thing as like not as familiar with like all the fiction in Japanese culture, but like if you'd ask someone like a Japanese person what is considered the Japanese canon for like best works, I could see that like some Japanese citizen having a pretty good answer to that. Or like if you'd ask like monster movie fans what is the canon for like monster movies, and like by canon being like those fundamental works that all other works draw some form of influence from and are like the bedrocks of a certain either culture or subsection of fiction.
If you manage to, I feel like I always put Lord of the Rings as the blueprint. If you manage to make something better than that, both in book form and or in movie form, then I think you could achieve the next level of peak fiction, because at that point you broke the record of how good a story could conceivably be, and just how imaginative and well thought out the human mind could make such a work of fiction. Because I usually view writing as
Wingard
like
Monsterverse movies.
No.
Vic,
But
I
like,
swear to God, I will throw you into a pit.
Yeah, no. We got to use Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. We got to use that now.
I haven't seen that movie, so I have yet to say
or
that.
like the
However, I
Northman.
think
It's amazing.
Robert
watch
Eggers
it.
is a good
Also-
director, and I
also,
believe the people
again,
that tell me it's
You
good.
missed the opportunity to use the line. I have
I
granted
will
you all
send
full
you
permission
to
to use the
Jesus.
line.
But I like.
I don't
for-
think
like,
Jesus would want you. I
Shit.
wouldn't send you to
Give
him.
it to him anyway.
Yeah, so you can shoot him back into hell where he
back down
belongs.
back into the pit you go, boy.
Damnatio memore for you, boy.
But
Mortis.
what's it called? Like for example, I would say that like on a literary level, I would say that like the Conan short stories are on par with Lord of the Rings, as like originally Lord of the Rings was meant to be a single novel rather than a trilogy. So like even if we're gonna say Lord of the Rings is a trilogy, then I would like pull out like 3 main Conan stories that like tell the main ideas of the themes of his works. I would say that those are on par as being peak fiction because they embody their themes so well and speak so much to the human mind on a certain topic that they're able to transcend in that aspect. Even I don't even like using the word transcend in that aspect, but I like if we're going to talk about like how great they are, I feel that maybe it is appropriate.
Yeah, I think that like when talking about Lord of the Rings, the themes and the values that upholds, like they are still transcendent. They are completely transcendent. They have been ever present in our society, and they will continue to be present for years to come. Maybe they could like you could find the certain values being upheld to diminish over time as society becomes more and more cynical, more and more nihilistic. But I still think it will continue to exist, and people will look back at Lord of the Rings, and like narratively, I think it's a piece of media that it should be aspired to be. Everybody should, every other piece of media should aspire to be in terms of like sheer quality. Like some stories will achieve a different function, so we'll have to look at like the equivalent of that. For example, like if you're looking for like a short story, well, what's the greatest short story ever written? Well, if you're writing a poem, well, what's the greatest poem ever written? If you're writing a monster movie, well, what's the greatest monster movie ever made? What's the greatest monster movie ever written?
I think like actually speaking to that, I think also influence plays a key part into whether like something can be considered peak, because like Tolkien fantasy is very much an influence for other works and like other very well done works. Like I'd say like no Tolkien, you don't really get Stormlight Archives. Even though I haven't read Stormlight Archives myself, people swear up and down from it. But I would say that like because of how transcendent Lord of the Rings is, you get stuff like other fantasy, like fantasy as a whole is built on Lord of the Rings to some degree. Outside of other fantasy works, I'd say are just as influential. And I think the same thing applies to Godzilla as well as King Kong too. And I think both of those works are so complementary and are so impactful when it comes to monster movies that they have inspired works that are as ascendants. And I'd say like maybe it took a long time in some people's eyes, but I do think that like something like -1 is a testament to calling something like 54 peak fiction.
I would like to involve Berserk in this conversation as well when regards to like fantasy, but I don't know where I could inject it into it because
Berserk is more like it has the trappings of Tolkien, but it has like Conan's pre-Tolkien fantasy spirit in it. In my view.
I was more so thinking of looking back for things that maybe would have served as some sort of influence on Tolkien and thinking, okay, but
that's mythology.
Before things like the myths, my first thought was something like the Odyssey. Wouldn't something like the Odyssey be considered even more peak in comparison? Due to
the Odyssey really wasn't one of Tolkien's influences. Like Tolkien's influences are more Germanic, so like the Volsung saga.
Like, my point still stands. Wouldn't something like that still be of a comparable level of?
Yeah, I'd say they're of comparable level. Like
I think the myths definitely are. Yeah. So like, I don't think. Imagine just being like constantly, surrounded by these kinds of works like the Odyssey, Dante's Divine Comedy, right? That kind of stuff.
You didn't call it the Inferno. You actually called it by its right name.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because it's Purgatory, Inferno, and Paradiso.
Yeah.
Just not in that order.
But someone say Dante's Inferno.
Yeah. No, like all of them are
Dante's
great.
Trilogy.
That's fine too. It's fine. It's not wrong.
Yeah, it's not wrong, but it has.
You're not wrong, but
it's got a lot of modern undertones that like I would want to make intermittent.
We're gonna have to burn you at the stake. I'm sorry.
Like the Iliad, Beowulf.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other one involving the son of Cain? What's his name? Like Beowulf and
the Bible.
What's the other guy's name?
Oh, frick. I don't remember.
What did you say, Zim?
The Bible.
No. I wouldn't call the Bible fiction. Don't call the Bible fiction.
No, but like even if what's it called? For some, it is. For others, no. But like if if someone's agnostic about it, like you still have to put respect on its name, regardless.
The Bible is like, especially there are some areas in it that are just literary genius, especially like in the Psalms and the poems. And just the writing style of Jesus' parables.
The Bible is an anthology of really good stories, because yes, there are some really good stories in here.
Especially with the apocryphal books that the Protestant Church does not like to recognize.
The Catholic Church doesn't either. I will not hear this from your papist mouth. I will hear none of this.
This is just funny to me as a former Catholic.
I will. No,
I'm not a Protestant. I'm not a Protestant. I'm speaking bitterly about it because the Apocrypha. My Bible has the Apocrypha in it, dude. I don't know what you're talking about.
I will summon the ghost of Martin Luther for this.
Martin Luther can suck my balls.
Bruh.
I had a dream for you to suck my balls.
The CIA killed him? Is that the guy the CIA killed?
Martin Luther. Did he say Martin Luther got killed by the CIA?
I swear. Minecraft, give me a reason, buddy. Give me a reason.
I'm not gonna play into it. I'm not gonna play into it. I'm just watching.
Exactly.
Did he say that? No. Wait, no. Did he say that unironically? Did
you say that unironically?
We talking about Martin Luther King?
I hate you all. I hate every single one of you. This is what a 98 generation. This is what the 98 generation does to you. This is what being 98 brain does to you guys.
Godzilla 1998 and its consequence have been a disaster to the human race.
I think a lot of it's like Fed. Simmons Chloe. Yeah, what's it called? Zeno, either you or Godzilla not. Now you have to draw either you have to draw a Zogra that's literally just glowing. You need to do that now for Glowy Zim.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Martin Luther, but that is the wrong Martin Luther.
Oh no.
There's Martin Luther King, and then there's Martin Luther. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was not a doctor at all. He's a
I get it. You know what they say. You know, I just do things. I just say things. I'm like a dog chasing cars.
I don't know what to do if I count one.
I'm
gonna run you over.
No lie, I always thought Martin Luther King Jr. was a president. Like
what?
As a kid. As a kid.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Just sees a picture of Obama. Bro, is that Martin Luther King?
And then I also played him in one of my like school class plays.
I can't.
Obama.
7 years. That's it. Oh no!
What
That's what I've done. Directed by Michael Bay.
Oh wow!
I'm gonna be burned at the stake for this.
Vic, did you as a kid by any chance refer to George Washington as George Washing Machine?
Can't say that I have.
I did know one kid who got George Bush and George Washington mixed up. He just knew that it was both. He just knew that it was George. So he's like, "Yo, is George Washington the one that was in office recently?" Granted, we were like 7 or 8 or something.
There's three actually. 3 Georges.
Yeah, there's 3 Georges.
Jesus.
Yo, you know what, Xena? You can't put too much shame on that. Before, like, I knew my founding fathers from my presidents. I did think Ben Franklin at one point was a president, but again, it's like 4 or 5 at the time.
Oh,
I mean,
I think it was like, I forget what it was. It was either like, I thought Ben Franklin was the president, not Jefferson or something. It was like one of those. It was like it was one of the early presidents that like I was mixed up with Ben Franklin. But that was fun. You gotta love that around here. But yeah, it is 10 at night for me. I have to get up early tomorrow.
At my time.
So I am gonna end off the stream. See, where can people find you?
Oh, okay. Well, I have a Twitter handle. You can find me on there, or actually, whatever you want to call it. KCI, that's my handle. And on YouTube, obviously, you can find me at Sea Monster Essays, where I, make some essay videos about monster stuff, and also do live streams. On January 11th, we will be taking a look at Adam Does Movies, allegedly. His video on Nosferatu 2024. It's going to be, I'm going to make sure to tag him, and it's, oh God, me and whoever may join me on there, we're going to have a party there. So, yeah, follow me for all that good shit. And speaking of Nosferatu, yeah, go watch it. Go see it. Support it. It is amazing.
There we go. Mean Creeft, where can we find ye?
Well, you can find me on YouTube at Minecraft World 1954. That's my @ or just Minecraft World, where I post kaiju and have versus related content for you to watch. Where I'm also currently working on a video essay about Project Nemesis, which I was hoping to finish by the end of the year, but I am not even halfway through scripting. Gonna get that gonna get that done, hopefully. And I have other video essays in the pipeline. One recent one that I came up with that I really want to do, especially in recent light, is in defense of the Monsterverse originals, because I'm kind of frustrated with how people are towards the Monsterverse original Titans and some of the hypocrisy that's there. But yeah, you can also find me on Instagram and Kara, where I post concepts and artworks for a Greek mythology inspired kaiju story and a Godzilla AU that I've been working on, both of which I have shared on this channel. So go check those out. And you can find me on Blue Sky. I'm not as active as I used to be, partially because I have been doing other things, mainly holiday related things. So yeah, but I'm there. Yeah. And for recommendations, go read Project Nemesis, go watch the Gamera movies, go watch Ultraman Rising, go watch Transformers 1, go watch The Owl House, go watch Nosferatu 2024. In fact, do a double feature trilogy of the Sonic movies and Nosferatu and its remakes. Those would be fun. And yeah, Tiamat deserves better. Take care. Oh, wait, before I go, I just wanted to say thank you, Zim, for just letting me be on these streams for this year.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, take care. Peace.
And I would say thank you as well.
Davik, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky as Vic Monstrous. I post personal drawings, update on commissions, stuff like that, personal takes. You can find me on YouTube as Kaijunot, where I have like videos on general kaiju related stuff. Mostly some Godzilla 98 stuff, some kaiju figure reviews, unboxings, and the like. As for movie recommendations, go watch Craven the Hunter. It's a pretty good movie. I like it a lot.
Oh my
Black
god.
Man, where can we find you?
So, me. First of all, nobody thanked me for my service. I expect mass cock sucking by the end of the year.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome. No, but yeah, this year has been wackadoodle. Been a thing. The only reason I didn't really do a stream yesterday is because I didn't really feel like it. So, but yeah, no, you can find me by looking for me in my channel and YouTube, of course, on Twitter. I have the same name everywhere. If you want to play Marvel Rivals with me, I will be on in a couple of minutes. I will stream it if I can. I don't know how to work the audio on my PS5, but I will try my best. I am working on the GVK video, so stay tuned for that. And join my Discord server. It's in the channel, in the descriptions. And don't mind the people there. Some of them are very outspoken about things, very autistic. And yeah, keep the hate train coming. It gives me views. And hopefully I'll get monetized by the end of next year because I need money. Please give me money.
And you can find me, Zimzilla, essentially everywhere. Just add an OG at the front for Twitter. Across all of the gaming systems, just add a YT at the end if you're on PlayStation. And nothing for Xbox because I was able to reclaim it on Xbox. Woohoo. Join the Discord, sign up for the Patreon, or donate on coffee, whatever helps. TeePublic for shirts. Expect more videos in the pipeline. That's going to be fun. And expect some streams. Like I said, Cottom Debate Round 2. We'll be doing a post of that tomorrow to see if more people want to join that. And I think my idea for the next pitch stream is going to be an interesting one. So you guys will wait in the pipeline for that too. But
Zim, just out of curiosity, have you let Animus know already?
I am going to text him tomorrow.
Oh,
I'm going to go tell Brayden.
Dun dun dun.
Mm.
But yeah, so that's gonna be fun, guys. We're gonna have a really fun time. But thank you all for being awesome and being a part of the channel and getting me all the way past 1K for this year. I got monetized, so that's awesome. And yeah, so during this time, while I'm not super busy, Pedal to the Metal just bought an animation sort of survival book, learning Blender, and doing some coding stuff for things that hopefully will come in the future soon. Hopefully very soon, and you might all be able to get to play it and watch it. And I'm probably saying too much anyway, but yeah, I always like giving hints to people. But yeah, I'm Zimzilla. I'll see you guys next time. And you know what? We're gonna end off the year right. The last one of these for 2024. Peace, guys.
Semper Fi, motherfucker.